Chapter 2499. Translator, Audiobook Studio Editor, Audiobook Studio. Breaking the siege in an instant, the Godslayer and the sky split into 10,000 swords, and all the attacks were concentrated on the low-level ultimate god. At the same time, Yi Xian was not idle. He had already taken out his divine palace of laws. Together with the divine bow of laws, he also attacked with divine talismans. Yi Xian knew very well that he was only relying on the sneak attack at the beginning. It was because the Eternal Night Domain had caught the enemy off guard at the beginning that led to the subsequent series of events. However, if he let his guard down even a little and did not connect the attacks, the enemy would be able to escape. At that time, a bloody battle would be unavoidable. Law of Devouring Arrows. Yi Xian shot 7 Law of Devouring Arrows at the same time. These 7 arrows landed in 7 different positions of the enemy, completely surrounding him. The powerful Law of Devouring Arrows once again controlled the enemy. Then, a divine talisman appeared in Yi Xian's hand. It was the divine talisman of 6 senses. This divine talisman had only one use, and that was to seal off all the enemy's senses for a short period of time. This period of time was very short, but Yi Xian did not expect it to last for too long. All of Yi Xian's attacks and restrictions were actually to create an opportunity for the Godslayer. Yi Xian did not believe that the attacks of 10,000 Godslayers could not kill this guy. One had to know that the Godslayer's attacks had the effect of a critical hit, and there was a chance of a one-hit kill. Yi Xian did not believe that 10,000 Godslayers could not even produce a single critical hit. Of course, because Yi Xian and the Godslayer had attacked the low-level ultimate god expert, the other 4 divine emperors naturally had a chance. At this time, the 4 of them were attacking Yi Xian crazily. The divine wood sword servants and the sword-forging beast were having a hard time blocking them. Although they were barely holding on, they managed to hold on. All of this seemed to take a long time to describe, but in reality, it had only taken a few breaths of time. Divine General Lin only had to think for a moment, and Yi Xian had already turned the situation around. Because the god-slaying sword had finally unleashed 3 consecutive 10-fold critical hits. 10 times the power of a critical hit might not be enough to kill a lower ultimate god expert, but it was enough to break through his defense. Once his defense was breached, the consequences would be unimaginable. That low-level ultimate god expert's fate could be said to be very miserable. He was actually cut into pieces by the Godslayer. Yi Xian would not mind even if it was just a fragment. After all, it was a 3rd-grade lower ultimate god. No matter what, it was worth devouring for Yi Xian. With a wave of his hand, the corpse disappeared and turned into Yi Xian's experience. Ding! System notification: host has made a breakthrough to lower rank 2 ultimate god. Just as the system notification sounded, Yi Xian launched a new attack. This was because Yi Xian did not have the time to wait. At this moment, the divine wood sword servants and the sword-forging beast had reached their limits. The combined attacks of the 4 enemies forced them to retreat. The sword-forging beast's attack style was too simple, while the divine wood sword servants were also good at defense. Therefore, the 2 of them were forced to block the enemy's attack. They had more than enough defense, but not enough offense. Once Yi Xian was done with the battle, he would naturally send reinforcements immediately. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The 3 consecutive arrows contained 3 powerful divine talisman attacks. In an instant, they stopped the 4 people's attack. Stopping the 4 people's attack was just the beginning. Yi Xian instantly launched infinite teleportation. At the same time, the god-slaying sword was quickly flying back to Yi Xian's side. Just as Yi Xian reached the 4 people, the god-slaying sword also returned to Yi Xian's hand. Go to hell! Yi Xian suddenly swept his sword. The powerful force killed the 4 people in the blink of an eye. After casually swallowing the bodies of the 4 enemies, Yi Xian then focused his attention on the enemy, Supreme Divine General Lin. Everything happened too quickly. They originally thought that Yi Xian would not have the spare energy to attack because he was breaking the seal. However, not only did Yi Xian attack, but he also killed an expert on Supreme Divine General Lin's side. Supreme Divine General Lin and Divine General Tian Long suddenly clashed again, but they immediately retreated. At this time, Divine General Tian Long was unable to launch an attack. Coupled with the change in the seal, he was relieved. It could be said that Supreme Divine General Lin was in a difficult position. Continue to fight? Not to mention whether or not he could kill Divine General Tian Long, the anger of the Divine Master would be enough to make him suffer. One had to know that once the seal was broken, everything that happened here would be easily detected by the outside world. Moreover, Divine General Tian Long could also send the news out. In the past, Supreme Divine General Lin and Divine General Tian Long had shaken hands in front of the Divine Master. But now, once the Divine Master knew, not only would Supreme Divine General Lin not continue to make trouble for Divine General Tian Long, but he would also have to find a way to explain everything. Supreme Divine General Lin looked at the pale Divine General Tian Long and thought that there was no antidote for the poison in Divine General Tian Long's body. Even if he let him go now, he would not live for long. Even if he could survive, his strength would be greatly reduced, and he would be like a cripple. At this thought, Supreme Divine General Lin waved his hand without hesitation and quickly left with his people. Because he felt that instead of killing Divine General Tian Long, it would be better to let him become a cripple, and then let him suffer to death. At this moment, when Supreme Divine General Lin retreated, Divine General Tian Long could not hold on any longer and directly fell down. Father! Tian Hu roared and immediately rushed over. Yi Xian watched all this silently. These things had nothing to do with Yi Xian, but Yi Xian did not leave. Instead, he quietly meditated and rested in the original hall of the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp Tribe. The Heavenly Tiger had been very busy these past few days. The matters of the clan, the inquiries from the Divine Lord, the visits from the other clans, and so on made the Heavenly Tiger unable to rest for even a moment. Therefore, the Heavenly Tiger had almost never come to see Yi Xian. Of course, Yi Xian did not mind. For Yi Xian, there was not much difference whether Tian Hu came or not. In addition, Yi Xian knew clearly what kind of trouble Tian Hu was facing now. When Divine General Tian Long fell, the entire Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp Tribe was immediately looked down upon. The Divine Master of the Demon God domain only came once. After seeing the situation of Divine General Tian Long, he turned and left. Not long after, Tian Hu received news that Divine General Lin, who was still imprisoned in the Divine Master Palace, was directly released. Obviously, the Divine Master of the Demon God domain gave up on Divine General Tian Long. Subsequently, including the Punishment Elder, there were more than 10,000 people in the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp Tribe who were convicted of treason, and hundreds of people were executed for treason. This undoubtedly caused the strength of the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp Tribe to be greatly reduced. Chapter 2500. Pill refining and detoxification. The surrounding tribes of the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp Tribe also used this opportunity to seize the benefits of the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp Tribe. It could be said that Tian Hu's days were very difficult. In a flash, a full year and a half had passed. In this 1 year and a half, Yi Xian had never left the ruins. Many people did not understand what Yi Xian wanted to do, but Yi Xian was very clear about what he was doing. In fact, in this 1 year and a half, Yi Xian had been refining pills. It was not a simple matter to cleanse the poison in Tian Long Deity General's body, and it was not something that ordinary pills could do. Even Yi Xian took a full year and a half to refine a myriad poison pill with the help of the system. The myriad poison pill was refined from 10,000 types of poison, and it could be said to be extremely toxic. But this was the most reasonable antidote pill that Yi Xian found after thousands of attempts. In this 1 year and a half, Tian Long Deity General's condition was deteriorating day by day. It could be said that if it was not for the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp Tribe's divine pills protecting it, it would have fallen long ago. Yi Xian needed the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp Tribe because there was a transmission array that Yi Xian wanted, a transmission array that could leave the Demon God domain. Yi Xian would not forcibly seize it because Yi Xian had seen what happened to the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp Tribe. He knew that after Tian Long Deity General recovered, it was impossible for him to serve the Demon God domain's Divine Lord. And this was Yi Xian's opportunity. A chance to find more clues about Luo Luo. As long as he could obtain Tianlong deity general support, then Yi Xian would undoubtedly be able to obtain more information in the demon god domain. Since it was the antidote pill that Yi Xian refined, and spent so much time, how could he not leave behind a backup plan? It could be said that once Tianlong deity general took Yi Xian's antidote pill, he could naturally be detoxified, but at the same time, he could only be like Tianhu, serving Yi Xian for life. This was the result that Yi Xian wanted. Yi Xian not only wanted to control Tianhu, he also wanted to control Tianlong deity general, control the entire Sky Dragon drunk shrimp tribe, and make them serve him. From there, he could find Luo Luo's whereabouts, in the demon god domain, arrange his own forces. On this day, Yi Xian was the Sky Dragon drunk shrimp tribe. At this moment, everyone in the Heavenly Dragon drunk shrimp tribe knew about Yi Xian. Almost everyone knew that if it wasn't for Yi Xian, then their Heavenly Dragon drunk shrimp race might have already been exterminated. Therefore, no one could stop Yi Xian from coming over. Tianhu was dealing with matters when he suddenly heard Yi Xian's arrival. He immediately put down everything in his hands and went out to welcome him. "Boss, you're here." Yi Xian nodded and asked, "How's your father?" Hearing Yi Xian mention his father, Tianhu's face showed a helpless expression, and then said, "Boss, my father's heart has been poisoned, even his godhead has been contaminated. I'm afraid he won't be able to hold on much longer." "It's okay, let's go, take me to see your father, I've already refined the antidote," Yi Xian said lightly. However, his words made Sky Tiger and all of the Sky Dragon drunk shrimp tribe's clansmen dumbfounded. Only after losing something would one know how to cherish it. After experiencing countless changes in the past year and a half, the Sky Dragon drunk shrimp tribe members knew for the first time how important their tribe leader was to them. Without Tianlong deity general, the Sky Dragon drunk shrimp tribe was nothing. At this moment, hearing Yi Xian say that he had already refined the antidote, how could they not be excited? "Boss, is what you said true? You mean, my father can be saved?" "You can try, but I can't guarantee success. There's about a 70% chance, whether you want to try or not, it's up to you." 70% chance. Tian, who was inexplicably shocked. Now, not to mention 70% chance, even if there was only 1% chance, he was willing to try. He believed that Tianlong deity general was the same. After all, if he were to live like a cripple now, he might as well just die. At this moment, since there was a 70% chance, why not cherish it? Tian, who did not hesitate and directly led Yi Xian to Tianlong deity general's bedroom. Sure enough, as Yi Xian and Tian who expected, after hearing that Yi Xian had refined the antidote, there was a 70% chance that it could detoxify Tianlong deity general. Tianlong deity general did not hesitate and directly agreed. "Okay, I'm willing to try, anyway, there's no point in living like this, not to mention 70% chance, even if it's only one or half. I want to try too." Tianlong deity general was extremely excited. But Yi Xian was not in a hurry to start. Instead, he continued to say to Tianlong deity general, "There's one more thing I have to tell you, your quintessence has been contaminated, so I need to detoxify your quintessence. Once I succeed, I won't be able to return your quintessence shard to you. Are you still willing?" Originally, this restriction was placed on the myriad poison pill, but Yi Xian changed his mind when Tianlong deity general said that his quintessence had been contaminated. Instead of secretly using the myriad poison pill to control Tianlong deity general, it was better to openly use the quintessence shard. He believed that Tianlong deity general would not be able to refuse. Sure enough, after hearing Yi Xian's words, Tianlong deity general only hesitated for a moment, then directly said, "Okay, if you can really detoxify my quintessence shard, then my life is yours, it's only right that I serve you." Since Tianlong deity general could think it through himself, it was no doubt a good thing for Yi Xian. Yi Xian did not hesitate and directly handed the myriad poison pill to Tianlong deity general. Remember, this is a method of fighting poison with poison, so the process will be incomparably painful. If you can endure it, then you can live, if not, then you will only die a miserable death. Tian Long Deity General did not hesitate, swallowing the myriad poison pill in one gulp, then said, "If I can live, what's a little suffering?" Yi Xian nodded slightly, then immediately ordered Tian Hu to withdraw everyone, even Tian Hu. Yi Xian did not allow him to stay. "Whether your father can survive or not, it's up to him. At this time, your father cannot be disturbed, so everyone, including you, must leave. Whether he can survive or not, it all depends on his own luck." Tian, who had long been obedient to Yi Xian's words, so naturally, he would not hesitate at this time. Although he was very reluctant, Chiyu still followed Yi Xian and left. In the following days, Tian Long Deity General's painful roars could be heard in almost the entire Tian Long drunk shrimp tribe. But everyone pretended not to hear, as if they did not see, and only silently prayed in their hearts, but did not disturb. After all, Yi Xian had already ordered that no one was to disturb Tian Long Deity General while he was detoxifying. 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. Chapter 25:01. The reappearance of predicament. 7 days passed in the blink of an eye, but it also felt like thousands of years had passed. But in the end, the Heaven Dragon Divine General walked out. "Father." Tian, who strode over and looked at Tian Long Deity General, his eyes were filled with surprise. After all, before taking the myriad poison pill, Tian Long Divine General even had difficulty walking. But now, anyone could see that the poison had been cured. The elders of the Heaven Dragon Drunk Shrimp tribe also surrounded Heaven Dragon Divine General, asking about his well-being, worrying about his health. But Yi Xian walked over in a few steps. "Well, although the poison in Tian Long Divine General's body has been mostly removed, but the remaining poison is not completely removed, so you still need to consolidate. Here are a few pills, take them and have a good rest. I believe that in a few days, although it can't restore your peak cultivation, at least the poison in your body can be removed." Without hesitation, Tian Long Deity took the elixir from Yi Xian's hand. Then, with a smile on his face, he said to Tian Hu, "You have to discuss with young Master Yi Xian and the other elders about the clan. No matter what happens, you have to be patient. Since I have been detoxified, the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp's clan will rise again. I will go into seclusion to expel the poison and recover my cultivation. I will leave the clan to you all." "Yes, Father, I understand." The Heavenly Dragon Deity was going to expel the remaining poison. This was naturally a good thing, so no one stopped him. However, the crowd had underestimated Exalted Scale. In fact, Exalted Scale had wanted to see how the Heavenly Dragon Divine General would be tortured by the poison and how he would die miserably. Thus, when he left, he had used a secret technique to control a relatively weak elder. Not long after Tian Long Divine General appeared, Divine General Lin also received the news. For the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp tribe, the recovery of the Sky Dragon Divine General was a good thing, but for the Divine General Lin Divine General, it was not a good thing. Although the Demon God Domain's God Lord had given up on the Sky Dragon Divine General, and even allowed the other races to suppress the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp tribe, if they knew that the Sky Dragon Divine General had recovered his strength, it would be hard to say what would happen. He must not be allowed to detoxify in peace. Supreme Scale made up his mind and immediately issued a few orders. Reporting. Young Clan Leader, Elder Nether Sky of the Southern Water Holy Knight has reported that the Southern Water Holy Knight clan has openly occupied the 12 towns of the Southern Water. Right now, Elder Nether Sky is leading his clan members to defend the Southern Water Palace. Elder Nether Sky is certain that young clan leader will immediately send experts to help. Yi Xian and Tian, who were drinking happily after learning that Tian Long Deity General was successfully detoxified. However, a piece of news ruined their good mood. What? How dare the Shenyi clan? What do they want to do? Openly raising an army, could it be that they want to start a war with my Heavenly Dragon Drunk Shrimp tribe? The Shenyi clan could be considered a great power in the South Water. It could be said that they controlled the South Water together with the Heavenly Dragon Drunk Shrimp clan. Although the South Water clan had been causing a ruckus before, it wasn't to the extent of mobilizing their troops. At most, they would only take a small advantage. But today, they had openly mobilized their troops. This was a completely different matter. Young Patriarch, the East Sho tribe has an urgent report. The 12 scaled dragons of the East Sho tribe are gathering their troops and they are heading straight for the East Sho camp. Young clan leader, the Northern Wilderness has an urgent report. The Northern Wilderness desert city has been breached by the Sandworm clan. The Northern Wilderness elder is leading the clan back. News broke out one after another, and every one of them was a major event. Every one of them represented a military coup. It could be said that this time, several large clans that bordered the Heavenly Dragon Drunk Shrimp tribe had directly mobilized their troops to invade. The territory of the Heavenly Dragon Drunk Shrimp tribe was personally conferred by the Divine Lord. Back then, when the Heavenly Dragon Deity General was still alive, some of these clans were still attached to the Heavenly Dragon Drunk Shrimp tribe. But today, all the clans had mobilized their troops one after another. Damn it. Damn it, could it be that they had made an agreement? They actually mobilized their troops at the same time. Tian Hu was annoyed. But Yi Xian spoke at this time. Tian Hu, don't be anxious. I'm afraid that this time, all the clans had made an agreement. Boss, what do you mean by that? They are all in different regions. As for strength, even if they were to rebel together, they would not be a match for our Heavenly Dragon Drunk Shrimp tribe. What do they want to do? They can't, but someone can. If they are not willing, someone will force them to agree. Yi Xian said lightly. Because Yi Xian had thought of a possibility. Perhaps, all the rebellions were secretly instructed by someone. Yi Xian never underestimated any opponent. That Divine General Lin had always wanted to kill the Heavenly Dragon Deity General. Yesterday, the news of the successful detoxification of the Heavenly Dragon Deity General had just come out, and today, they received news of the invasion of various clans. If there was no connection between the two, Yi Xian would not believe it. Most likely, all these things were for one thing, and that was to force the Heavenly Dragon Deity General to appear. Yi Xian was the one who made the detoxification pill, so he was naturally the clearest about the detoxification of the Heavenly Dragon Deity General. Although the Heavenly Dragon Deity General had been detoxified at this moment, he had not completely detoxified. And this detoxification was the most critical moment. The poison chosen by the Divine General Lin was not a simple poison. Even if there was only a trace of it that was not completely detoxified, it was bound to have a great impact on the Heavenly Dragon Deity General. Perhaps it would not take the Heavenly Dragon Deity General's life, but it would definitely damage the Heavenly Dragon Deity General's cultivation base, and even his future growth space would be affected. Therefore, the Heavenly Dragon Deity General absolutely could not be disturbed at this critical moment. Tianhu, pass down the order, give up all the territories, everyone, retreat. Yi Xian's words, Tianhu did not understand. Boss, give up all the territories? This is equivalent to our Heavenly Dragon Drunk Shrimps tribe destroying our foundation. I'm afraid this is not appropriate. Is the real foundation of your Heavenly Dragon Drunk Shrimps tribe those territories? In the eyes of the divine lords of the demon god domain, I'm afraid only your father, the Heavenly Dragon Deity General, is the greatest foundation. As long as your father is still there, then, even if the territories are occupied by those people at this moment, sooner or later, you will have to spit them out. And now, you can only let your people retreat, don't lose your strength, and focus on strengthening the defense of the base camp. As long as your Heavenly Dragon Drunk Shrimps tribe's base camp is unhindered, then no matter who is against you, no matter what means they have, there is no way to use it at all. Tianhu heard Yi Xian's words, and in his heart, he understood. However, Yi Xian was right, the Heavenly Dragon Drunk Shrimps tribe, the main reason why they were able to achieve what they were now, was because of the Heavenly Dragon Deity General. Because the Heavenly Dragon Deity General was one of the 8 great deity generals, his own strength, coupled with the strength of his generals, was enough to be valued by the divine lords of the demon god domain. Chapter 2502. Chapter 252, Chapter 252, Chapter 252 Tianlong was demoted. This would only make the demon god realm's god lords look down on the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp tribe even more. By calling everyone back, they would be able to make the headquarters unbreakable. On the one hand, they could rest assured that Tian Long Divine General would detoxify the poison. On the other hand, they could avoid unnecessary losses. At this moment, what the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimps tribe needed the most was time. Even if they had to give up all the benefits in the periphery, as long as they could buy time for the Sky Dragon Divine General to recover, it was not impossible to recover those benefits. And once this was done, the one who should be anxious was not the Heavenly Dragon Drunk Shrimp tribe. Instead, it was those who harbored evil intentions. Sure enough, when he heard that the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp tribe did not resist at all, and all of them retreated to their base camp, Divine General Lin was enraged. The reason why Divine General Lin arranged this operation was to eliminate Divine General Tian Long's generals. One should know that in the eyes of the Divine Lord, Tian Long Divine General was not a person, but a force. Divine General Tian Long and Divine General Lin were only medium hierarch realm experts, while the other Divine Generals had Divine Emperor realm experts. The reason why the two of them were able to become Divine Generals was partly because of their strength, and partly because they had many experts as their subordinates. Take Tian Long Divine General as an example. He had close to 100 hierarch realm subordinates under him. Most of those ultimate gods were lower-level ultimate gods, but even if they were only lower-level ultimate gods, they were still ultimate gods. There was no need to discount them. The purpose of Divine General Lin's series of actions was to uproot the Heavenly Dragon Divine General Corporation one by one and then break it apart. As long as he could accomplish this goal, even if the Demon God Domain's Divine Master found out, he would only turn a blind eye. After all, there was no need for the Demon God Domain's Divine Master to offend a valuable Divine General for the sake of a cripple. Divine General Lin's goal was very simple. He wanted to trample on Divine General Tian Long so that he would never have the chance to make a comeback. Unfortunately, the plan that he thought was satisfactory was directly seen through by Yi Xian. A single lapse in judgment would cause all of Divine General Lin's subsequent arrangements to go up in smoke. Damn it, damn it. You all deserve to die. What kind of Divine General are you? You don't even have the guts to fight. Sky Dragon, you coward. Divine General Lin flew into a rage and kept cursing. Unfortunately, no matter how much he cursed, it was to no avail. As for what should be arranged, the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp tribe still continued to arrange. Divine General Lin was very clear that once the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp tribe gave up the peripheral interests and all of them were trapped in the main camp, then he would not have the slightest chance. After all, if he continued to attack the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp tribe at this moment, then what awaited him would be the Divine Master's anger. Moreover, the Divine Master would never allow him to do anything. At this moment, the one who was truly anxious was not Yi Xian, nor was it anyone from the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp tribe, but Divine General Lin Zun. Unfortunately, no matter how anxious he was, it was of no use. Under Tian Hu's command, the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp tribe gathered in their own camp. No matter how much the other tribes clamored, as long as they didn't attack, they didn't care. And if they were to launch an attack, relying on the sturdiness of their base camp, these small clans definitely wouldn't be able to do anything. This stalemate lasted for more than a month before Tian Long Divine General finally came out. This time, Tian Long Divine General not only expelled the poison from his body, but also relied on Yi Xian's elixir to consolidate more than half of his cultivation base. Tian Long said that once the Divine General came out, the entire Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp tribe seemed to have eaten a reassuring pill, and they no longer had to worry about anything. And Tian Hu finally breathed a sigh of relief. But whether it was Yi Xian or Tian Long Divine General, they were very clear in their hearts that things were not over yet. It could even be said that it had just begun. With Divine General Lin's hatred for Tian Long Divine General, he would never let Tian Long Divine General, who had been suppressed with great difficulty, rise again. Therefore, Yi Xian and Tian Long Divine General were very clear in their hearts that Divine General Lin's big move had just begun. Yi Xian didn't know what Divine General Lin had done, but in just a few days, the Divine Master's emissary had arrived at the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp tribe. Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp tribe, Tian Long, Tian Hu, accept the decree. The person who came was a medium ultimate god expert. Tian Long Divine General had seen this person before. He was the leader of the Divine Master's personal guards in the demon divine domain. Hearing the guard leader's words, Tianlong Divine General's heart suddenly thumped because the guard leader seemed to have a problem with the way he addressed Tianlong. It could be said that he had never called Tianlong Divine General by his name before, but today, he suddenly changed the way he addressed Tianlong Divine General. Tianlong accepts the decree. Tian who accepts the decree. The Divine Master has ordered that Tianlong is no longer competent for the duties of a Divine General due to his illness. Therefore, he has conferred the title of Tianlong King to guard the headquarters. All the ultimate God experts under him will be transferred to Divine General Lin. At the same time, Tian who has conferred the title of Tianlong King's Crown Prince to replace his father in Tianlong King territory. What? Tianlong Divine General suddenly raised his head. He knew that this order was given by Divine General Lin. However, with the Divine Master's divine ability, how could he not know that Tianlong Divine General had recovered his strength? On the surface, conferring Tianlong as Tianlong King seemed to be a promotion, but all the experts under him were transferred away. The result was obvious. It was basically taking away Tianlong Divine General's authority. Once Tianlong Divine General's experts were transferred away, it would not take long before Divine General Lin took action against Tianlong. At that time, not only Tianlong Divine General, but also the entire Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp tribe would be in danger. After all, Divine General Lin would not mind to eliminate the source of trouble. Tianlong Divine General had no choice but to accept the decree because going against the Divine Master's will would only result in a more miserable death. Yi Xian silently watched all of this. Such an outcome was not good for the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp tribe, but it was an opportunity for Yi Xian. Of course, Yi Xian would not mention it now. Instead, he waited for the crowd to disperse before Yi Xian called for Tianlong and Tianhu. Their divine fragments were in Yi Xian's hands. Therefore, Yi Xian was not worried that they would do anything to harm him. "Boss, why did you call us here?" Tianhu was the first to ask. For Tianhu, Yi Xian always had a way to solve any problem. It was as if nothing could stop Yi Xian. Therefore, when Tianhu heard that Yi Xian was looking for them, his first reaction was that perhaps Yi Xian had thought of a way to solve their current predicament. Chapter 2503. Yi Xian's suggestion. Yi Xian looked at Sky Dragon and said calmly. However, the meaning behind his words made both Sky Dragon and Sky Tiger tremble. "Boss, what idea do you have?" Sky Tiger asked impatiently. After all, Sky Tiger had been in control of the situation all this while. He knew the plight of the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp's tribe better than anyone else. Yi Xian nodded and continued, "Before I tell you my idea, I want to ask you first. What do you think of the Kunlun Divine Domain?" Kunlun Divine Domain? Sky Dragon and Sky Tiger looked at each other. Sky Dragon said, "There is almost no difference between the Kunlun Divine Domain and our Demon God Domain. It's just that the dominant races are different. If you want to ask me what I think, I don't have any idea at all. After all, although I am a Divine General, I have never been to the Kunlun Divine Domain. I have only fought with a few experts from the Kunlun Divine Domain in the Over-God battlefield." Yi Xian nodded. Sky Dragon's answer was very pertinent. After all, Sky Dragon was telling the truth. He had never been to the Kunlun Divine Domain. How could he know so many things? Therefore, Yi Xian said his idea, "Now you have seen that the Divine Master of the Demon God Domain has given up on you. It can be said that if you don't think of a way to protect yourselves, not only you, but the entire Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp's tribe will be exterminated. Even if you don't, with Divine General Lin's attitude, at least your tribe will be enslaved." Sky Dragon frowned. How could he not understand what Yi Xian said? In fact, he knew that Divine General Lin had probably started to make arrangements now. Perhaps in a few years, there would no longer be any Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp's tribe in the Demon God Domain. Extermination of tribes was a very normal thing in the Demon God Domain. According to the records, the Demon God Domain used to have 100,000 tribes in ancient times. However, today, there were less than 10,000 tribes. One could imagine how normal it was for tribes to be exterminated in the demon god domain. If a race wanted to be preserved, then they must first have enough experts. Then, they must not have powerful enemies. The Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp's clan had experts, but these experts were about to be transferred away, and the strength of Divine General Lin was definitely not something that Sky Dragon alone could stop. Therefore, the extermination of an entire race was not something that could be imagined. Instead, it was something that was already placed in front of Sky Dragon. Of course, I know that. However, I wonder what Brother Ye's idea is? Sky Dragon did not refute. Instead, he wanted to see Yi Xian's answer. Since that's the case, I'll be frank with you. Actually, I'm not from the demon god domain. I'm a human from the Kunlun god domain. Because of a coincidence, I came here. A while ago, I was the one being hunted down by the demon god domain. However, it wasn't me who stole the treasure, it was someone else who wanted to steal my treasure. Originally, I didn't intend to ask about your matters. I just wanted to borrow your teleportation formation to the Master God battlefield and return to the Kunlun God domain. However, since the two of you have given me the quintessence shards, I can't just ignore your matters. This time, I plan to ally with the Kunlun God domain and directly kill the Demon God domain's Divine Master and several Divine Generals. Then, I'll let the two of you manage the Demon God domain. Yi Xian revealed his thoughts. Of course, Yi Xian's words were not everything. In fact, Yi Xian had always wanted to overthrow the Demon God domain's Divine Master. Only then would Yi Xian have the opportunity to continue investigating Luolua's whereabouts. Yi Xian's words shocked the two of them. In their hearts, Yi Xian's words were undoubtedly asking them to betray the Demon God domain. They were not willing to do such a thing, but now, they had no choice at all. Yi Xian's words were their final choice. They could either annihilate their clan or ally with the Kunlun God domain. Because, the one who had their eyes on them was not an ordinary person, but the Divine Master Lin. Therefore, they might not even have the chance to escape. Of course, perhaps Sky Dragon could take Sky Tiger and find a deserted place to hide, regardless of the life or death of the other clansmen. However, the result of that would be the entire Sky Dragon Drunk Prawn clan bearing the wrath of Divine General Lin for them. For a moment, Sky Dragon and Sky Tiger fell silent. They were calculating the gains and losses in their hearts. In fact, Yi Xian could very well order the two of them directly. After all, they could not disobey Yi Xian's orders. However, Yi Xian could not do that. Because Yi Xian knew very well that Sky Dragon might listen to him, but he would not do it wholeheartedly. Luolua's importance was irreplaceable in Yi Xian's heart. Therefore, Yi Xian hoped that Sky Dragon would do it wholeheartedly, and not because of Yi Xian's orders. After about an hour, Sky Dragon seemed to have made up his mind. He said to Yi Xian directly, "All right, I promise you. However, I hope that after this is done, my son, Sky Tiger, can be the master of the Monster God domain." Yi Xian smiled slightly. Yi Xian would be more than happy to let Sky Tiger be the divine master of the Monster God domain. As for strength? Once this was done, Sky Tiger would have the entire Kunlun God domain behind him. In that case, who would dare to object? "Alright, I promise you." "Alright, since this matter has been decided, then bring me to your teleportation formation. I need to return to the Kunlun God domain and tell Divine Master Mi Ming about this matter. Before I return, you'd better settle your internal affairs. Even if it's a powerhouse, even if it's a genius, if they don't follow our plan, then eliminate them all." Yi Xian instructed Sky Dragon. Sky Dragon nodded immediately. "I know what to do." After all, this matter involved betraying the entire Monster God domain. Once the news was leaked, the Divine Master of the Monster God domain would personally annihilate the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp's tribe. Therefore, Sky Dragon would not show the slightest bit of mercy. Anyone who did not cooperate would be killed. However, Sky Dragon believed that no one was a fool. Naturally, they could see what kind of situation the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp's tribe was facing. He believed that no one wanted to die, and no one wanted to become someone else's servant. Therefore, this matter was not too difficult to handle. Yi Xian was brought to the forbidden grounds of the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimps tribe by Sky Tiger. This was the core of the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimps tribe. There was an ancient teleportation formation here that led to the battlefield of the Overgods. Yi Xian did not hesitate and walked into the teleportation formation. Soon, he arrived at the battlefield of the Overgods. Chapter 2504. Love Bug. With a flash of light, a figure walked out of the teleportation formation that led to the battlefield of the Overgods in the Divine Master Palace. Halt! Who are you? In an instant, hundreds of guards surrounded the figure. After all, the guards would naturally value someone who had been teleported out from the battlefield of the sovereigns. I am the law enforcer of the realm of the gods, the Jiufeng 60,000 territories provincial governor, Yi Xian. Where is this place? Yi Xian flashed his identity medallion, and the guards immediately knelt respectfully in front of Yi Xian. Lord Law Enforcer, this is the Divine Master Palace. Who would have thought that they would be teleported directly to the Divine Master Palace? This saved Yi Xian a lot of time. Alright, quickly take me to the Divine Lord. I have something urgent to report. This Lord Law Envoy, Lord Divine Master is currently in seclusion. I'm afraid he won't see you. Seclusion? Why didn't he go into seclusion earlier or later? Why did he choose to go into seclusion at such an important moment? Yi Xian didn't have time to worry about that. He had the guards bring him to where Mi Ming was in seclusion. The realm of the gods law enforcer, Jiufeng 60,000 territories provincial governor, Yi Xian, has an urgent matter to discuss with the Divine Master. Yi Xian shouted from outside the palace where Mi Ming was in seclusion. Yi Xian's voice was very loud, which made the surrounding guards of the Divine Palace frown. Their mission was to protect the Divine Lord and not let anyone disturb him. However, Yi Xian was a law enforcer of the Divine Realm after all. At the same time, he was also the provincial governor of the 9 directions 60,000 territories. He could be considered as one of the upper echelons of the Kunlun Divine Realm. Now that Yi Xian said that he had something important to report, they were worried that they would delay the matter. It had to be known that Yi Xian had returned from the battlefield of the Overgods, so no one could be certain that the battlefield of the Overgods had not changed. It had to be known that the last great war in the Divine Realm had only ended a few years ago. Yi Xian silently waited for Mi Ming's response. After a while, a voice finally rang out, "Come in." It was Mi Ming's voice. Yi Xian quickly walked in and reported to Mi Ming without hesitation, "Lord Divine Lord, there's been a change in the Demon God Divine Realm. I've already contacted a clan of divine generals in the Demon God Divine Realm. I hope Lord Divine Lord can send experts over immediately. This time, we must execute the beheading operation and take down the Demon Beast Divine Realm in one fell swoop. Have you been in the Demon God's domain while you were gone?" Unexpectedly, Mi Ming asked about Yi Xian first. "Yes, I've always been in the Demon God's domain." Yi Xian answered affirmatively. Mi Ming nodded. "All right. However, this is a matter of great importance. We can't dispatch troops just because we want to. How about this? I'll confer you the title of Celestial Angel. I'll leave this matter to you. Once you're ready, we can begin." Yi Xian was slightly stunned. He never thought that Mi Ming would give him full authority over such an important matter. However, since it was given to him, Yi Xian wouldn't refuse. After all, with him in charge, it would be better to coordinate with the experts of the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp Clan and the Kunlun Divine Realm. Alright, I'll accept this mission. However, Lord Divine Lord, this time, I hope to end this quickly. Because the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp Clan is at risk of being divided up at any moment. Although I've asked them to hold on, they won't be able to hold on for too long. You can do as you see fit. The Divine Lord of the Demon God Divine Realm is a middle rank 6 Divine Emperor. Yu, Bai Feng, and Sheng Yu are all middle rank Divine Emperors. I'm sure they'll be able to handle this matter. You can bring the 3 of them over." Yi Xian was puzzled. Mi Ming's reaction was a bit abnormal. Logically speaking, Mi Ming shouldn't have handed over such an important matter to Yi Xian so easily. Then, what had happened to her? Lord Divine Lord, are you feeling unwell? Yi Xian asked directly. Although the possibility wasn't high, apart from this, Yi Xian couldn't think of any other reason. This has nothing to do with you. You should go and arrange the expedition to the demon god divine realm. No. Mi Ming's reaction was definitely wrong. System, detect Mi Ming's situation. Even though he knew that detecting Mi Ming would consume a lot of energy, Yi Xian still wanted to do it. Ding. System notification, host, please take note. The target is too strong. If you want to detect her, you will need a lot of resources. Detect. Yi Xian could accept the consumption of resources, whether it was faith points or ancient resources. Ding. System notification, target has been corroded by the emotion god worm. Currently, most of her divine power is used to suppress the worm. Her strength has been severely damaged. Emotion god worm? What was that? Yi Xian was puzzled. This was the first time Yi Xian had heard of this name. System, what exactly is this emotion god bug? Ding. System notification, the emotion god worm is a special worm that existed in the ancient era. In ancient times, there was a super expert called the illusion god ancestor. He was best at the illusion of love. The illusion god worm refined by this person was extremely powerful. It can be said that once this worm enters the body, there is no way to solve it. The emotion god worm's special effect was that the person who entered the body would fall wholeheartedly in love with the caster and would never regret it for the rest of their life. To think that such a worm existed. Yi Xian finally understood why Mi Ming was in seclusion and why Mi Ming could ignore the impending war with the Kunlun divine realm. It wasn't that Mi Ming didn't want to interfere, but that he didn't have the strength to do so. Who cast the emotion god worm on you? Yi Xian quickly walked to Mi Ming's side and asked. Mi Ming had always treated Yi Xian very well. Now that Mi Ming was in trouble, Yi Xian naturally couldn't just sit by and watch. You know about this worm? Mi Ming asked doubtfully when she saw Yi Xian directly mention her situation. Use your divine power to suppress him. I'll think of a solution. Yi Xian didn't answer. Instead, he asked the system directly, System, do you have a way to remove this emotion god worm? Ding. System notification, there are 2 ways to resolve this. First, kill the person who is casting this skill. However, it cannot be cast by the person who is casting the skill. Second, refine the emotion transference pill and change the target of the caster's liking. The caster can choose their own target. Yi Xian was shocked. It seemed that there was only the second option left. Since this person was able to attack Mi Ming, that person's strength was at least on the same level as Mi Ming. Yi Xian didn't have the ability to kill him. Thus, refining the emotion transference pill was Yi Xian's only choice. Although Yi Xian didn't know who cast the worm on Mi Ming, he could tell from Mi Ming's reaction that she wasn't willing. Since that was the case, what was Yi Xian waiting for? Yi Xian took out a pill furnace and started refining in Mi Ming's palace. Chapter 2505. Mi Ming's secret failure. Failure again. Failure again. Although Yi Xian had the help of the system, the divine pill of emotional transference was a special pill from ancient times. Adding on some other restrictions, Yi Xian had no choice but to refine it himself. Yi Xian had lost count of how many times he had failed. Countless precious resources had been wasted just like that. As for Mi Ming, she clearly saw all of this. However, the current Mi Ming couldn't do anything else, so she could only silently watch Yi Xian's actions. Failure after failure didn't make Yi Xian give up. As long as Yi Xian still had the resources, Yi Xian wouldn't give up on the refinement. Finally, Yi Xian succeeded. The emotion-shifting divine pill that emitted a peculiar fragrance was finally successfully refined by Yi Xian. Yi Xian didn't hesitate and directly brought the pill in front of Mi Ming. Lord Divine Master, this pill is called the divine pill of emotional transference. It can resolve the strange bug in your body. So this is the divine pill of emotional transference? I didn't expect you to know how to refine such a pill. Mi Ming took the pill and swallowed it without hesitation. Wait a moment, Lord Divine Master, this pill has a side effect. You don't need to say it, I know. Mi Ming said indifferently, then closed her eyes. Seeing that Mi Ming had closed her eyes and was meditating, Yi Xian didn't disturb her and walked out. But when Yi Xian walked out, Mi Ming opened her eyes. Looking at the door, Mi Ming said softly, "Of course I know the effects of this divine pill of emotional transference. You don't need to tell me, I know." Master, why are you treating me like this? Although I don't know why you want to obtain Yi Xian's quintessence shard, I am your disciple. Even if I refuse to help you obtain Yi Xian's quintessence shard, you can punish me, but why are you treating me like this? The divine pill of emotional transference has probably long been lost in the God realm. How many of them can be passed down? Yet you use such a treasure to deal with your disciple. What did I do wrong? Master, there's nothing wrong with your pursuit of power. You've schemed and plotted countless schemes, but this has nothing to do with me. However, among us disciples, who have you truly treated as your disciples? We're not your tools. Mi Ming was muttering something to himself. Clearly, this matter had something to do with his master. And his master was the one who had brought Yi Xian to the Kunlun God domain. Then, what exactly happened to Mi Ming? However, it was impossible for Yi Xian to know about this. At this moment, Yi Xian knew that Mi Ming still needed some time to deal with the strange insect, so he didn't waste any time and quickly gathered his forces. This time around, it would be the final blow to the demon god domain. Once the demon god domain's Lord God domain was slain and the few god generals were annihilated, the other powers of the demon god domain would no longer be able to go against the Kunlun god domain. This way, the humans of the demon god domain would naturally be rescued. Moreover, Yi Xian believed that with Mi Ming's character, he definitely wouldn't bully the people of the demon god domain. It could be said that this was the best outcome. Yi Xian knew that every day he delayed would be a day more dangerous for the Sky Dragon Drunk Prawn clan. Therefore, Yi Xian didn't waste any time and constantly gathered his forces. With his status as an angel of the god domain, no one dared to oppose Yi Xian's orders. After all, this angel of the god domain was the person with the highest status in the Kunlun god domain other than Mi Ming. In the Kunlun god domain, other than Mi Ming, even the forbidden guards of the divine palace had to listen to the orders of this angel. This angel of the god domain was rarely set up. Although it was only a temporary position, the authority it represented was too great. Moreover, the appearance of this angel of the god domain meant that something big was about to happen. Countless experts began to gather. Yi Xian didn't need too many people this time. What he needed were all experts. It could be said that this time, Yi Xian selected at least mid-level hierarch experts. Other than the 3 mid-level hierarch gods, Yi Xian also selected 100 low-level hierarch gods experts. This powerful force directly gathered at the Divine Master Palace. Only after everyone had gathered did Yi Xian reveal their mission this time. This time around, we are going to slay the demon god domain's lord gods and their powerful beings. You could say that the battle this time around will be fraught with danger. However, if we succeed this time around, there will be no more wars between our Kunlun god domain and the demon god domain. How about it? Are you guys confident? Yi Xian asked the crowd. Many people were puzzled when they heard the mission's objective. Lord Angel of the god domain, killing the demon god domain's divine masters is not a small matter. How confident are you? That's right, Lord Angel. It's not that we're afraid of death, but our Kunlun god domain and the demon god domain have been fighting for hundreds of thousands of years. Even though we've won and lost against each other, no one has ever mentioned something like killing a divine master before. Lord Angel, don't you know that once experts like us enter the enemy's domain, we will be immediately detected? When the battle breaks out, we won't be able to hide our tracks. Once we are exposed, what awaits us will be the revenge of the entire demon god domain. How are we going to kill the enemy's divine masters? That's right, that's right. Lord Angel, aren't you being a little too whimsical? Killing the enemy's divine masters? I'm afraid we will be surrounded and killed before we can even reach the Divine Master Palace. How are we going to kill the enemy's divine masters? As soon as Yi Xian finished speaking, many people jumped out to oppose him. Although Yi Xian's identity was noble, his strength was only at the lower-level ultimate god realm. He was not ranked high among these people. It was no wonder that these people dared to question Yi Xian. Of course, Yi Xian understood this. However, he allowed these people to make enough noise before saying, "Yes, your worries are not without reason. Once we enter the demon god's divine domain, our whereabouts will definitely be exposed. However, what if I tell you that there is a divine general in the demon god's divine domain who is cooperating with us? Do you still think you don't have a chance?" Divine general? A divine general from the demon god domain? This is impossible. There are only 8 divine generals in the demon god domain. Each of them holds great power. How can they betray us? Lord Angel, is your information reliable? Could it be a trap set by the enemy? Of course, the information is reliable. What I can tell you is that the divine general's quintessence fragments are in my hands. Do you still have any doubts? A divine general from the demon god domain who had his quintessence controlled. Chapter 2506. Preparing for action. After all, if the master died, the person who had the shard of the godhead stripped would also die without a doubt. And the master could kill the person who had the shard of the godhead stripped immediately with just a thought. This was the strongest method that could not be resisted. If Yi Xian really had the godhead of a divine general, then the success rate of this operation would be very high. In addition, I can also tell you that the divine general is not welcomed in the demon god domain. He could even be killed by their divine lord at any time. That is why he led the entire clan to betray us. As a price, we only need to support him to the position of divine lord. After that, the 2 divine domains will be united. How is it? Do you still have any doubts? So there was such an inside story. If that was the case, then this matter was worth believing. Besides, since Yi Xian could become an angel, it proved that this matter was approved by the Divine Master, and could not be falsified. Alright, we will listen to the angel's arrangements. Just tell us what to do. Let us end this war that has lasted for hundreds of thousands of years in our hands. Finally, someone shouted loudly. Then, someone immediately responded loudly and agreed to the operation. Yi Xian looked at this scene with a smile, and then began to make arrangements. 2 days later, a mighty army entered the Master God battlefield from the Kunlun God domain, and then teleported to the territory of the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp tribe. This time, Yi Xian only brought 20,000 people, but these 20,000 people were the strongest force in the Kunlun God domain. It could be said that Yi Xian had mobilized 1/3 of the super experts in the Kunlun God domain. This force was enough to kill the divine master of the demon god domain. At this time, in the demon god domain, the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp tribe had already made preparations. In order to cover the arrival of Yi Xian and the others, Sky Dragon directly ordered countless formations and restrictions to be set up in the main camp of the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp tribe. Among them, the location of the teleportation formation was the most secure. The teleportation formation was located in the main hall of the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp tribe, which was also where Sky Dragon usually lived. Therefore, even if someone saw Sky Dragon's arrangement, they would think that Sky Dragon was just timid and afraid of the revenge of Divine General Lin. As for the matter of mobilizing experts, Sky Dragon found all kinds of excuses to delay it. In order to delay, Sky Dragon even held a wedding for Sky Tiger. After all, Tian Hu was the son of Tian Long Divine General. Holding a grand wedding for Tian Hu, and then taking the opportunity to let the experts under Tian Long stay, was naturally a suitable excuse. But the outside world did not know that these experts under Sky Dragon subordinates had already gone through a great purge. Not to mention those who opposed the Heavenly Dragon operation, even those who were hesitant were killed or imprisoned. The Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp tribe had long been an iron bucket. Those who were still transmitting information had long been investigated. The information they sent was basically the information that the Sky Dragon wanted the outside world to know. The demon god domain's divine masters and divine general Lin would receive a report every day. He thought that he knew everything about the Sky Dragon drunk shrimp tribe like the back of his hand. In the information he gave them, Sky Dragon was worried about the revenge of God General Lin, so he set up a large number of formations and restrictions in the entire territory. He was reluctant to hand over the experts in his hands because he was worried about God General Lin's revenge. He even pointed out that there were some people among them whom the Sky Dragon would never let go. The news was very detailed and very reasonable, so no one doubted it at all. The demon god domain's god lord didn't care about what Sky Dragon wanted to do, much less whether God General Lin would exterminate the Sky Dragon drunk shrimp tribe. In the eyes of the demon god domain's divine lord, since Sky Dragon Divine General had lost his value, it was naturally impossible to care about his life or death. Whether Divine General Lin Divine General wanted to kill Sky Dragon or annihilate the Sky Dragon drunk shrimp tribe, he would not ask. But he didn't know that being cold-blooded and heartless meant that others would treat him coldly as well. At this moment, in the Sky Dragon drunk shrimp clan, everything seemed to be normal from the outside. However, in reality, one after another, experts were rushing into the Sky Dragon drunk shrimp clan. After these people arrived, they did not have the slightest time to rest. Instead, they immediately began to change into the Sky Dragon drunk shrimp clan's attire. At the same time, they also disguised their auras. They would go out with the identity of the Sky Dragon drunk shrimp clan's members. Because of Sky Tiger's wedding, during this period of time, there were people coming in and out of the Sky Dragon drunk shrimp clan's base camp. This was already a common occurrence. However, no one knew that including Sky Dragon and Sky Tiger, as well as all the experts of the Sky Dragon drunk shrimp clan, all the experts of the Kunlun divine domain were constantly being replaced. Those who went out were experts, but when they returned, they were just ordinary enemies. A secret plan was being carried out in an orderly manner. Once out of the surveillance range, these people would immediately change their attire and head straight for the demon god domain's divine master palace. Such an operation lasted for a full 10 days. It could be said that in these 10 days, if any part of the chain went wrong, it would inevitably trigger the entire plan. But the enemy's carelessness, as well as the meticulous planning of Yi Xian and others, allowed them to pass these 10 days peacefully. Half a month later, Yi Xian had already arrived at the demon god domain's divine master palace. It was different from the Kunlun divine domain's divine master palace. The demon god domain's divine master had built a huge city around his divine master palace. Millions of people lived in the city. Among these millions of people, even if less than 30,000 people suddenly rushed in, it would not be obvious at all. Besides, this was the divine master palace. Who would cause trouble here? The demon god domain had been peaceful for too long. All this time, it was only them who had invaded the Kunlun divine domain. There had never been a precedent of the Kunlun divine domain invading them. Therefore, they were too lazy. Esteemed angel, after a few days of careful observation, I found that the demon god domain's divine master palace's security is not considered tight. Furthermore, there are less than 100,000 guards in the divine master palace. Among them, there are only a little over 1,000 experts. Esteemed angel, I have been constantly observing the city. There are only 3 places that require our attention. The rest of the places do not have the slightest threat at all. Esteemed angel, I have already led my men to set up a seal around the city. Once the battle begins, I am confident that no news of this place will be leaked out within 6 hours. Boss, I have already brought my men to purchase a few pavilions near the Divine Master Palace. I have also successfully bribed a few guards according to your instructions. We have received accurate information that the demon god domain's divine master has been in the palace all this time and has not left. Reports after reports gathered in front of Yi Xian. This allowed Yi Xian to continuously perfect his plan. In front of Yi Xian, a virtual image appeared, showing the layout of the divine master palace. It even clearly marked the locations of the guards. The enemy's carelessness was an opportunity for Yi Xian and his men. Alright, since everything is ready, we will take action at noon tomorrow. Remember, every unit must do their best to complete their mission. There is no way out for us. If the mission fails, none of us will be spared. Do you understand? Don't worry, we understand. Chapter 2507. Changes. There was no defense in the demon god domain's divine master palace. Not only that, but the divine master palace was holding a banquet. The divine master of the demon god domain was called Xiao Wu. It was said that he was a black dragon. Xiao Wu was cruel and cold-blooded. Of course, this was the demon god domain, so it was impossible to rule with benevolence and morality. Xiao Wu was very strong. When he was young, he had a great opportunity and obtained the ancient inheritance of the ancient Black Dragon clan. He was originally from the Black Dragon clan, so the inheritance was perfect. It could be said that the dragon god's 10,000 law incantation made countless people revere it. Today, Xiao Wu was inviting one of his divine generals, Qian Huang. This divine general was one of the only two upper-class emperor gods in the entire demon god domain. However, he was from the same clan as Qiao Wu, the Dark Dragon clan. Qiao Wu and Qian Huang were the only two superior god emperors in the demon god domain. That was why the five of them were able to threaten their positions. Mi Ming sent Yi Xian, Sima Yu, Bai Feng, and Xing Qiu. The three of them were all mid-class emperor gods. The three of them were skilled in joint attacks and had been working together for hundreds of thousands of years. They had great chemistry. Normally, with the three of them working together, they might not be able to kill Qiao Wu, but they could at least defeat him. However, with the addition of Qian Huang, it was hard to predict the outcome. The Kunlun god domain only had one upper-class emperor god domain divine master, Mi Ming. The reason why they could fight against the demon god domain was because of Sima Yu, Bai Feng, and Xing Qiu's joint attacks. However, this also meant that with Mi Ming, they could fight against Qiao Wu and Qian Huang. Sending the three of them alone was a good way to win. When the news that the divine lord of the demon god realm was inviting Qian Huang to a banquet arrived, Yi Xian had no choice but to stop. With the addition of a variable like Qian Huang, the matter of forcefully attacking would become a little more troublesome. Could it be that they were already at this stage and they were still going to give up the attack? Of course, this was impossible. Things had already progressed to this stage, and all the arrangements had been made. Moreover, the most important thing was that it was already not easy to sneak so many people over. If they were to send them back, it would be almost impossible to do so. For a moment, Yi Xian fell into deep thought in the tea house that served as the temporary headquarters. To fight or not to fight? If they were to fight, then they would have to deal with two high-grade god emperors at the same time. Their chances of winning would be greatly reduced, and it was very likely that they would lose in the end. Even if they barely managed to obtain victory, the sacrifices they would have to make would be extremely high. Not fighting? It was likely that the people here would not be able to escape unscathed. Furthermore, with every second they delayed, the chances of them being discovered would increase by a fraction. What to do? This was a difficult choice to make. After all, if he made a rash decision, it would undoubtedly be irresponsible to these people. Lord Angel, give the order. So what if we have one more high-grade god emperor super expert? Even if we have to risk our lives, we will kill the demon god domain's lord god to end this war that has lasted for hundreds of thousands of years. That's right, Lord Angel. Today's sacrifice is worth it. After all, as long as the demon god domain is not destroyed, our Kunlun god domain will not be at peace. The next time the master god domain erupts, hundreds of millions of our people will die. Seeing Yi Xian hesitate, the two experts immediately stood up and said, I understand what you mean. However, in this operation, we can only win, not lose. If we lose, even if we kill the demon god domain's lord god Qiao Wu, as long as Qian Huang is still alive, he will be able to spread the news immediately. When that time comes, not only will we all die here, it will also lead to a new master god domain war. Yi Xian voiced his doubts. He was not afraid of sacrifice. The experts he had brought this time were already aware when they set off. This time, many of them might not be able to return. However, if they could not kill all the enemies here at the same time, once the news spread, it would have a huge impact on their subsequent operations. Once the operation failed, there would definitely be more sacrifices. At the same time, it would lead to the start of a new Master God domain war. Qiu Wu had actually invited Qian Huang to a banquet at this time. This was an unexpected turn of events. No one had thought of this. As the second most powerful person in the demon god domain, Qian Huang had naturally planned this beforehand. Originally, Yi Xian had planned to kill Qiu Wu by force, then eliminate the 8 great divine generals as quickly as possible. He would then use the teleportation formation in the 8 great divine generals' residences to quickly mobilize the soldiers of the Kunlun god domain into the demon god domain. From there, he would gain full control of the demon god domain. However, Qiu Wu inviting Qian Huang to a banquet instantly destroyed all his plans. No matter how meticulous a plan was, it was always afraid of unexpected variables. At this moment, Yi Xian had encountered such a variable. Moreover, it was a fatal variable. When the crowd heard Yi Xian's doubts, they fell into deep thought. Yi Xian's worries were not without reason. At the same time, it was also what they did not want to see the most. Lord Angel, why don't I lure Qiu Wu away, then you all kill Qian Huang first, then kill Qiu Wu. What do you think? Suddenly, Tianlong Divine General stood up and said to Yi Xian and the other experts. You're going? Yi Xian raised his head and looked at the sky. However, he did not understand what Tianlong was planning to do. Tianlong's eyes were filled with determination. Tianlong hated Qiu Wu's selfishness and heartlessness. He hated revered Scale's ruthlessness. At the same time, Tianlong also understood that if he did this, there was a high possibility that he would never return. However, Tianlong was willing to do this. He silently glanced at Tianhu. Tianlong Divine General once again spoke to Yi Xian resolutely. Lord Angel, I can threaten Qiu Wu by not handing over my military authority. Then, I can ask Qiu Wu to come with me to find revered Scale and ask him to promise that he will ensure the safety of my clan after I hand over my military authority. Qiu Wu has his eyes on one of the experts under my command. I'm sure he will agree. With Qiu Wu's ability, it will only take a few hours for him to bring me to revered Scale's residence and come back. This way, Qian Huang will not be able to follow you. In these few hours, I'm sure you will be able to kill Qian Huang and deal with the aftermath. As long as Qiu Wu does not suspect anything when he returns, he will not be allowed to participate in the next operation. As long as Qiu Wu returns, he will not be able to escape. Tianlong voiced his idea. It had to be said that his idea was the only feasible one. Yi Xian looked at Tianlong but did not know what to say. After all, although Tianlong's idea was feasible, there was no doubt that Tianlong would not be able to escape this time. Once Qiu Wu returned and saw that the situation was not right, he would definitely prioritize killing Tianlong. Chapter 2508. Translator, Nyoibo Studio Editor, Nyoibo Studio. Kill without mercy. Sky Dragon stood up and bowed respectfully to Yi Xian for the first time. He wanted to ask Yi Xian to let him die. Yi Xian frowned. Although he did not want to do so, he knew that it was the only way. All right, go ahead. Finally, Yi Xian gave the order. Everyone get ready. Once Sky Dragon leaves with Qiu Wu, immediately attack the Divine Master Palace. Remember, no one is to be spared. Yes, sir. In an instant, everyone started to move. Who was to go where and who was to be responsible for what? From the very beginning, they had a thorough plan. Everyone was waiting silently for news from Sky Dragon. Shortly after Sky Dragon entered the palace, 2 streams of light flashed. Yi Xian knew that Sky Dragon had succeeded. He had successfully lured Qiu Wu away. Kill. Yi Xian waved his hand, signaling the official start of the operation. Activate the restrictions and arrays. Immediately, someone sent a message out. In an instant, the entire Divine Master Palace was surrounded by restrictions and arrays. Outside the city, several restrictions were raised at the same time. Furthermore, more than 100 experts were patrolling the area. From that moment on, the entire city where the Divine Master Palace was located could only be entered and not exited. Boom! Suddenly, the door of the demon god domain's Divine Master Palace was smashed open by a powerful force. Many experts rushed in from all directions. Stop right there. Who are you? How dare you trespass into the Divine Master Palace? Do you want to die? When the gate was broken, dozens of Divine Master Palace guards rushed in. These people did not realize what was going on and even thought that it was a small matter. Kill them all. Rush in and leave no one alive. However, what awaited them was Yi Xian's order to kill. The operation this time was related to the final fate of the two divine realms. It was also related to the life and death of these tens of thousands of experts, including Yi Xian. Therefore, the Divine Master Palace was destined to be filled with rivers of blood. Kill! Everyone roared and immediately rushed toward the Divine Master Palace. In the Demon God domain's Divine Master Palace, there was also a powerful forbidden space array. Furthermore, there were also all kinds of powerful protective formations. However, in order to deactivate the forbidden space array formation and activate the protective array formation, Qiu Wu's authorization was required. At that moment, although the Divine Master Palace was under attack, Divine Master Qiu Wu was not present. Hence, the Divine Palace's guards did not dare to activate the array formation without permission. This was a pleasant surprise. Under the protection of a few experts, Yi Xian directly ran forward. As for these tens of thousands of experts, once they entered the Divine Master Palace, it could be said that they were wolves that had entered a sheep's den. How could they care so much? As long as they saw a living person or beast, they would kill them without leaving any leeway. At this moment, Qian Huang, who was drinking by himself and waiting for Qiu Wu's return, heard the commotion. However, he did not know exactly what had happened. Therefore, no reinforcements came immediately. Yu, Bai Feng, and Holy Mound did not make a move. They silently followed beside Yi Xian. They were the trump cards to deal with Qian Huang and Qiu Wu. Yu had obtained a special ability called soul sharing. This ability could connect the target's soul for a short period of time and achieve the special effect of synchronizing their thoughts. This ability might not be able to increase one's attack power. However, it could be used to assist in a joint attack. Bai Feng cultivated the law of life. Furthermore, she also had a special ability called life sharing. This ability allowed him to link the life force of the target he chose. As long as he couldn't kill the person in the life force link at the same time, then even if he died without a complete corpse, he would be able to revive immediately through this special ability. In addition, Bai Feng mainly cultivated the law of life. Therefore, her life force was extremely strong. Once the three of them attacked together, it would not be easy to kill her. As for Holy Mound, the special ability he cultivated was called Bloodline Fusion. This ability was also useless in the beginning. However, once one could find someone with the same bloodline as Holy Mound, they would be able to fuse their bloodline power together. As for Yu and Bai Feng, they were such people. The bloodline power of the three of them could fuse perfectly. There were trillions of living beings in the Kunlun divine domain, but they had only cultivated 3 people who were good at combining attacks. In reality, these 3 people were not cultivated by Mi Ming. They were cultivated by the previous divine master of the Kunlun divine domain. In order to find these 3 people, it was already extremely difficult. In order to cultivate them, they had to pay a huge price. However, once they were cultivated, they would be of great use. Just based on the fact that these 3 people were only intermediate divine emperors, but they could join forces to fight against a superior divine emperor. One could see the power of these 3 special abilities when combined. Of course, this was also because they had been demonic for hundreds of thousands of years. In fact, the 3 of them had been cultivating the fusion technique of these 3 abilities since they were young. The entire Divine Master Palace was filled with battle cries. Qiu Wu's Divine Palace guards were fighting a bloody battle, trying to defend against the elites of the Kunlun Divine Domain. Unfortunately, they couldn't do it at all. Although they were the guards of the Divine Palace, and many of them were chosen from the saints, Yi Xian had brought the elites of the entire Kunlun Divine Realm this time. They were the strongest experts gathered in the entire Kunlun Divine Realm. No matter how elite the Divine Palace guards were, they could not defend against them. Who are you waiting for? You are actually good at the Divine Master Palace. You really don't know your place. They finally reached the main hall of the Divine Master Palace. However, Qian Huang was holding a wine cup in his hand. He did not care about Yi Xian and the others at all. Not bad, not bad. 3 intermediate divine emperors. It seems that you are not from the demon clan divine domain. However, do you think that the 3 of you can do anything to me? Qian Huang was very confident. Of course, he had the right to be confident. He was a superior 3rd grade superior divine emperor. However, among Yu, Bai Feng and Xing Qiu, only Xing Qiu was a 9th grade middle grade divine emperor. The other 2 were 8th grade middle grade divine emperors. With such a huge gap in cultivation, Qian Huang was naturally confident. In his eyes, even if there were hundreds of 9th intermediate divine emperors, he would not be afraid. What more 3 of them? Bai Feng looked at Qian Huang and said calmly, "Is that so? It seems that you are quite confident." As they spoke, the 3 of them revealed their own treasures at the same time. "Ha, ignorant fool, die." Suddenly, Qian Huang attacked directly. A violent power swept through the entire palace. The main hall of the Divine Master Palace was destroyed in an instant. Furthermore, because of Qian Huang's strong power, he destroyed the anti-sky seal. Chapter 2509. Special mystique. Of course, with Qian Huang breaking through the forbidden space seal, the others were naturally able to soar into the air as well. At that moment, several low-level emperor gods beside Yi Xian took action at the same time, protecting Yi Xian. Logically speaking, Yi Xian, a mere low-level ultimate god, should not appear on such a high-level battlefield. However, Yi Xian had to come. First of all, he was the overall commander of this operation and the only medium between the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp Tribe and the human experts of the Kunlun Divine Domain. The Kunlun Divine Domain and the Demon God Divine Domain had been at war for hundreds of thousands of years. The resentment was not something that could be resolved in a day or 2. Only Yi Xian could suppress both sides. Yi Xian was the angel of the Kunlun Divine Domain. With the authority in his hands, other than Mi Ming, everyone had to obey him. Yi Xian was the savior of the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp Tribe's clan leader. At the same time, it could be said that he was the benefactor of the entire Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp Tribe. The experts of the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp Tribe naturally obeyed him. Therefore, Yi Xian's appearance was inevitable. If he did not come, the operation would not have been so easy. It was just a single blow. It was just a casual blow from Qian Huang. Moreover, it was not aimed at Yi Xian. It was just the aftermath of the blow that swept towards Yi Xian. However, among the 5 experts who were tasked with protecting Yi Xian, 3 of them vomited blood from the aftermath. Terrifying power, powerful strength, this was Qian Huang. This was the Qian Huang Divine General who could stand side by side with the Demon God Divine Domain's Divine Masters. Protect the angel. Seeing that the 3 people beside Yi Xian were severely injured, a few more experts immediately rushed over and reinforced the defense around Yi Xian once again. No one suggested that Yi Xian should leave. Even though they knew Yi Xian leaving was the best choice, they all understood the significance of Yi Xian staying here. Thankfully, Qian Huang had not noticed anything special about Yi Xian. Otherwise, he would have been beheaded before Yi Xian could lead his men to execute the decapitation plan. At this moment, Yu, Bai Feng, and Holy Mound exchanged glances. Without hesitation, they immediately unleashed their 3 special divine abilities. The 3 of them cooperated with each other very well. Even if it was just a glance, it was enough to let the others understand their intentions. The light was so dazzling that no one dared to look at it directly. At the same time, a huge change was happening. Within the light, Yi Xian could faintly see the power of countless laws flowing within. It had to be known that when the three of them combined, it meant that the power of their laws would fuse together. This kind of fusion was an indescribable fusion. Because this kind of fusion was unique in the entire divine realm. In the entire divine realm, perhaps there were many people who could share the same mind and cooperate with each other. However, only Yu, Bai Feng, and Holy Mound could achieve such a perfect fusion. In order to nurture these three people, the previous generation's divine master had spent countless resources and countless amounts of time to do it. This was a special case that was very difficult to replicate. The power of the laws only protected the three of them. At this moment, they could be said to be invincible. This was because when they fused, they would receive the protection of their own power of the laws. It could be said that a small protective domain had formed around the three of them. This strange change caused many people to stop what they were doing, especially Qian Huang. At this moment, he did not understand what was going on. When the fusion began, Qian Huang had tried to launch an attack. However, his attack did not have the slightest bit of effect. He was directly repelled by the strange domain. When the three of them fused, there was no power that could interrupt them. Time passed. The killing continued around the Divine Master Palace's Great Hall. However, the Great Hall was strangely quiet. Qian Huang frowned as he watched the changes in front of him. He was actually unable to break through the moves of three mere mid-level god emperors. Suddenly, Qian Huang's expression changed. You are from the Kunlun Divine Domain. No one paid any attention to Qian Huang. In fact, it was only now that they realized that Yi Xian and the others were from the Kunlun Divine Domain. Just how arrogant was this Qian Huang? Damn it, you are actually the trinity of the Kunlun Divine Domain. Damn it. Qian Huang's expression was already somewhat flustered. He looked like he was about to retreat. However, it was already too late to leave now. Qian Huang's mind stirred and he immediately wanted to activate the teleportation array to leave. However, at this moment, he realized that he had been locked down by a strange power. He could not activate the teleportation array. Qian Huang had a teleportation jade pendant. This jade pendant was a treasure that he had personally created using ancient materials. This jade pendant was directly connected to Qian Huang's residence. As long as Qian Huang activated the jade pendant, he would be teleported back in an instant. It could be said that he had never failed to teleport before. This was the first time that he had failed to teleport. Qian Huang touched the jade pendant. However, the jade pendant did not have any abnormalities. This proved that there was no problem with the jade pendant. The crux of the problem was that strange power. Qian Huang's gaze immediately locked onto Sima Yu and the other two. Now that this situation had occurred, it could only mean that Sima Yu and the others were the culprits. At this moment, Yi Xian clearly saw this scene as well. Furthermore, he asked the system, what kind of strange fusion technique did the three of them use? Ding. System notification. The three of them have used their self-created fusion divine ability, the Trinity. Because the three of them have synchronized consciousness, shared life and blood, they are able to produce a special resonance. Ding. System notification. Host, please take note. The three of them have synchronized their law powers. It is recommended that the host absorb their experience. This will be beneficial to the host's fusion of law powers. Absorb experience? Yi Xian was slightly stunned. Fusion of law powers. It was as if Yi Xian had heard some unusual news from the system. However, at this moment, Yi Xian did not have the heart to care so much. That was because the great battle had finally begun in front of him. Sima Yu, Bai Feng, and Holy Mound's so-called Trinity fusion was an extremely special fusion method. The so-called three of them referred to their consciousness, life and blood. When these three powers were completely synchronized, it would cause a series of changes. Now, through the battle with Qian Huang, it could be clearly demonstrated. At this moment, Yi Xian was carefully observing the changes on the battlefield under the protection of the crowd. Because according to the system's notification, even if he was only observing the battle this time, it would still be extremely beneficial to Yi Xian. You guys, it's really you guys. Trinity, what a wonderful trinity. I've long heard that there are 3 people in the Kunlun divine region who have the trinity of self-created divine abilities. They are incomparably powerful. Today, this honorable one would like to see just what is so special about the 3 of you. Chapter 25:10. Chapter 25:10. Chapter 25:10. First hearing of fusion law. After all, Qian Huang was a 3rd-ranked divine emperor. But Sima Yu and the other 2 were only middle-ranked divine emperors. Eat my sword. Suddenly, Qian Huang attacked directly. In an instant, an incomparably huge divine sword appeared beside him. This divine sword was actually formed by the power of several laws. Furthermore, it had already materialized. This was the power of a divine emperor. Even if it was just a thought, it could immediately mobilize the power of laws. Once the divine sword appeared, it immediately rushed toward Sima Yu and the other 2. At this moment, Sima Yu and the other 2 were standing together in a triangle. Yi Xian could clearly see that the 3 of them had completely fused together. Since this was the so-called fusion of bloodlines, it was likely that the bloodlines in their bodies had already been connected. And the 3 of them had reached a terrifying level of coordination. The most important thing was that above their heads, there was a strange ball condensing. This ball did not have any light. It was like a ball of water. However, this ball was formed by the power of laws. Furthermore, this ball had a thin line connecting the heads of the 3 of them. This was the pearls of their thoughts. It could be said that the 3 of them had completely transferred their thoughts here. To describe it more vividly, the 3 of them had already become one person. This person was different from any one of the 3 of them. This person had all the power and methods of the 3 of them. At the same time, he could control all the power of the 3 of them. However, this consciousness did not really exist. It was created by the fusion of the 3 people's consciousnesses using a special divine ability. Therefore, this illusory consciousness had extremely terrifying intelligence. After all, it was the combination of the consciousnesses of the 3 people. Furthermore, this thought was also favored by the power of laws. It could appear because of the laws. Therefore, it could be said that it could completely fuse with the laws. Symbiotic law. At this moment, the 3 of them had half the power of laws. How strange and terrifying was this? If he had not seen it with his own eyes, even if Yi Xian heard it, he would not believe that such a divine ability existed. The 3 of them controlled their bodies to fight with their thoughts. It was as if one of them was controlling his own body. After all, he was the fusion of the 3 of them. Therefore, he naturally had control over the 3 of them. At this moment, when Qian Huang's divine sword of laws attacked, the 3 of them moved at the same time. Attack after attack, defensive restrictions, and divine abilities appeared at the same time. This was the terror of the 3 of them. Because there were 3 of them, they could do 3 things at the same time. Even if Yi Xian had the system, because he was only a single person with 2 hands, it was impossible for him to be so synchronized when attacking and defending. Even if it was an instantaneous divine ability, Yi Xian would still need a bit of buffer time when using it. Even if the buffer time was so short that it was almost undetectable, it still existed. However, the 3 of them did not need any time. They could use 3 battle techniques at the same time. System, what's the equivalent is, what is their strength? Yi Xian asked the system again. After all, after the 3 of them used the 3 of them, Yi Xian was quite concerned about how much their strength had increased. No matter how special the 3 of them were, if they were not strong enough, it would be useless. Because they would not be Qian Huang's opponent at all. Strength was not something that could be made up for by some strange method. Especially when it came to a direct battle. Ding, system notification. The target is equivalent to a 5th grade superior divine emperor. What? They were actually fifth-grade superior divine emperors? It was not that Yi Xian had not imagined the strength of the three of them after using the three of them as one. However, in Yi Xian's heart, he felt that the three of them were at most first-grade superior divine emperors. Yi Xian did not think this way for no reason. Because there was a gap between a ninth-grade middle-grade divine emperor and a first-grade superior divine emperor. One had to know that as one's strength increased, the suppression between the realms would become stronger as well. After obtaining the power of the laws, not to mention the difference between realms, even between each grade of cultivation, there would be a huge gap. Perhaps, if an 8th grade middle grade divine emperor wanted to defeat a 9th grade middle grade divine emperor, it could be done by chance and with special techniques. However, if a 9th grade middle grade divine emperor wanted to defeat a 1st grade superior divine emperor, it would require a great opportunity to do so. As for an 8th grade middle grade divine emperor trying to defeat a 1st grade superior divine emperor, without special treasures or special abilities, they would not even be able to break the other party's defense. If they could not even break the other party's protective divine shield, what would they use to defeat him? Therefore, in Yi Xian's heart, he thought that even if the three of them used the three of them as one, they would not be able to become first-grade superior divine emperors. Then, they would have to use some special techniques to have the ability to kill Qian Huang. However, who would have thought that they would be fifth-grade superior divine emperors? Could this be the power of the fusion of laws that the system had mentioned? The power of the fusion of laws actually had such a great effect, such a miraculous effect. After the fusion of two 8th grade middle grade divine emperors and a 9th grade superior divine emperor, they would have the power equivalent to a 5th grade superior divine emperor. If these three fellows were strong people who had the titles of the previous titles, then, wouldn't they be able to defeat 9th grade superior divine emperors? In this realm of the gods, who would be able to be their match? Perhaps, only that mysterious place could deal with these fellows. Of course, Yi Xian was only thinking about it. After all, the three of them were considered to be on the same side. Furthermore, in the realm of the gods, there were only the three of them. Moreover, they were cultivated by the previous divine master of the Kunlun divine domain over hundreds of thousands of years. It would be very difficult for there to be a second one. The power of the fusion of laws. Yi Xian silently remembered this technique because Yi Xian knew that once one had the power of the fusion of laws, their power would undoubtedly increase greatly. Unfortunately, the method of the fusion of laws was not something that Yi Xian could grasp at the moment. The current Yi Xian could only sense the power of laws at most. Even if Yi Xian had the cultivation of a second-grade inferior divine venerable, he could not touch the level of the fusion of laws at all. Being able to witness the fusion of laws in battle with such a cultivation level was already a great opportunity for him. While Yi Xian was pondering over this problem, on the other side, the battle between Yu Yu, and Qian Huang had already reached its climax. To be more precise, it had already reached its climax right from the start. Chapter 25:11. Chapter 25:11, Chapter 25:11 Qian Huang's death. That was why they had to end the battle quickly. Not only was it to conserve energy, but it was also to prevent Xiao Wu from returning early. As for Qian Huang, he had long heard of the Trinity's prowess. That was why he did not dare to hold back. That was why the battle was extremely intense from the start. Whoosh! Suddenly, Qian Huang's figure disappeared. When he reappeared, he had already split into 10,000 copies. Among the 10,000 copies of Qian Huang, there was only one main body. However, the rest of Qian Huang had their own means of attack. Boom boom boom. 10,000 copies of Qian Huang attacked at the same time. All kinds of powerful attacks instantly attacked Sima Yu and the other two. Suddenly, Sima Yu and the other two smiled strangely at the same time. Then, the three of them condensed 3 black balls in their 6 hands. Devouring power. Who would have thought that the three of them also knew the devouring law? In an instant, the attacks that filled the sky were all devoured by the black balls. However, it was different from what Yi Xian had expected. The black balls did not disappear. Instead, they connected in an instant. After that, countless attacks exploded at the same time. These attacks were all the attacks that Qian Huang had just released. At this moment, they were all returned to Qian Huang. It was not the power of the devouring law. Yi Xian was shocked. This was some kind of technique after the fusion of laws. Because the power of the devouring law was something that Yi Xian was very clear about. It could only devour attacks. It could not be said that it could quickly turn the enemy's attacks into its own attack to attack the enemy. Boom, boom, boom. In the sky, countless explosions sounded. The attacks that Qian Huang had used to attack Sima Yu and the other two were actually faster than when they came. They attacked Qian Huang's 10,000 copies. Yi Xian's mouth twitched. This kind of technique was simply too much. It was like cheating. The enemy's attacks were all absorbed and then counterattacked. The key was that it was strengthened several times before counterattacking. If this wasn't cheating, then what was? Countless of Qian Huang's 10,000 copies were destroyed in an instant. Even the main body was caught off guard and was forced to retreat. Qian Huang's face was filled with fear. If the enemy was able to reflect all of his attacks, and could even buff him when he reflected them, he was afraid that anyone would be shocked. Qian Huang thought of retreating again, but he could not do it. Domain. Suddenly, Sima Yu and the other two unleashed their own domain powers at the same time. A strange scene appeared. This time, the domain powers that appeared were actually overlapping domains. In other words, the three different domains of Sima Yu and the other two actually merged together perfectly, forming a new domain. What a good trinity. This method was simply impossible to guard against. It was even unimaginable. In an instant, Qian Huang was drawn in by the power of the domain. As for Sima Yu and the other two's domains, it was obvious that they had chosen them carefully. One of them was the desolation field. Within the desolation field, God power would disappear completely. Anyone who fought within the desolation field could only rely on their own power. The second one was the domain of rebirth. Not only could the regeneration domain give birth to victory, but it could also quickly heal the damage he received. In this way, it would be equivalent to the enemy being stripped of their divine power and their domain, and they would be victorious. The third domain was the strangest. It was actually the gravity domain. Yi Xian also used the law of gravity more often. When he defeated the sword-forging beast, he relied on the arrow of the law of gravity. But now that he saw Sima Yu and the other two's gravity domain, Yi Xian realized that his use of the law of gravity was so simple. In the gravity domain of Sima Yu and the other two, the gravity could be controlled at will. It was different from Yi Xian's law of gravity attack. Yi Xian's law of gravity attack was simply a huge pressure from above. But the gravity domain of Sima Yu and the other two could change their position according to their wishes. They could increase or decrease the gravity of a certain area at will. For example, where Sima Yu and the others were standing, the gravity would be reduced to an extremely low level. Even if they blew, they would be blown far away. But where Qian Huang was standing, the gravity was 10,000 times stronger, and it was squeezing from all directions. It was as if there were 6 walls around Qian Huang's body, constantly squeezing Qian Huang. Moreover, the power of these 3 law domains had perfectly fused together. Yi Xian's mouth twitched again. Towards Sima Yu and the other two's battle methods, Yi Xian could only say that they were too much of a bully. It could be said that Qian Huang was the enemy, but Yi Xian could not help but feel sorry for him. Qian Huang was really unlucky to have met Sima Yu and the others. At this moment, Yi Xian also thought about what would happen if he fought Yu and the other two if he was Qian Huang. But Yi Xian was shocked to find that he could not do anything. Sima Yu and the other two had the special power of the law of fusion, so whether it was attacking or defending, it was like cheating. It was simply impossible to resist. Actually, at this point, the result was very obvious. Once Qian Huang fell into the domain of Sima Yu and the other two, he would lose any chance of resistance. Qian Huang was still trying to struggle, but all his attacks were useless. Even after he attacked, he was used by Sima Yu and the other two to kill him. want to break through the restrictions of the domain? His strength was taken away, and there was the pressure of 10,000 times the gravity, so he had no way of escaping the restrictions of the domain. Qian Huang was really panicking this time. No matter what, he was still a high-grade God Emperor expert, the second most powerful expert in the demon god divine domain. But now, he was trapped by the three intermediate divine emperors of the Kunlun divine domain, and he could not do anything. It could be said that this was a humiliation, but this humiliation was one that he could not erase. Holy Mound, quickly end the battle. We still need time to set up the trap and wait for Qiao Wu to return. I hope that you can do your best to save Sky Dragon. At this moment, Yi Xian finally spoke, and announced Qian Huang's fate. At the same time, the elites of the two clans in the main hall quickly went out to help. They wanted to help the people outside and quickly deal with the Divine Palace Guards, and then use their own people to disguise as the Divine Palace Guards. Honorable Lord Angel, this subordinate found a mystic realm, and there are Qiao Wu clansmen in the mystic realm. How should we deal with them? Suddenly, an elite came to Yi Xian's side and said to Yi Xian. Yi Xian was about to give the order to kill them all, but suddenly stopped. Go, capture all of Qiao Wu's relatives, then set up a restriction. It might be useful when the time comes. As for the others, just kill them all. Was Yi Xian cruel to do that? It might be cruel, but Qiao Wu was a 6th-rank superior divine emperor. If Yi Xian did not use some tricks, there was no guarantee that he could defeat him. Chapter 25:12. Chapter 25:12. Chapter 25:12. Qiao Wu's return. Upon receiving Yi Xian's order, Yu Yu and the other two did not waste any more time. They immediately used their powerful domain powers to launch their strongest attack on Qian Huang. 100,000 times gravity. This was a terrifying power. At this moment, Qian Huang had no choice but to face 100,000 times gravity attack. Aside from the 100,000 times gravity, Yu Yu and the other two's Trinity domain also sucked away all of his divine power. It could be said that even if Qian Huang wanted to resist, he did not have the strength to do so. Qian Huang continued to struggle as all kinds of terrifying attacks exploded. It could be said that he was facing Yu Yu and the other two. If it were anyone else in front of Qian Huang, they would have been killed long ago. Those crazy attacks were continuously absorbed by Yu Yu and the other two in a strange way. Then, they turned into attacks that were reflected back at Qian Huang. The more powerful Qian Huang's attacks were, the more damage he would suffer. After an hour, Qian Huang was in despair. He could not do anything about this battle. He knew very well that he would definitely lose today. However, Qian Huang did not want to die. As the second most powerful person in the demon god realm, he had always had great power. He had endless glory and wealth. He was already a high-rank emperor god. As long as he was given 10,000 years, he could surpass the emperor god realm and reach a higher level. Therefore, Qian Huang really did not want to die. Stop, I admit defeat. I admit defeat, okay? Spare my life, I'm willing to give you my divine spark fragment. Qian Huang shouted loudly. Unfortunately, he did not think about who would dare to take his divine spark fragment. Not to mention that to get his divine spark fragment, Yu Yu and the other two would need to release their domain suppression. In that case, it would only take a moment for Qian Huang to escape. If they really got Qian Huang's divine spark fragment, wouldn't that be asking for trouble? Qian Huang was the second most powerful person in the demon god realm. He had the cultivation of a high-rank emperor god. No matter who got his divine spark fragment, Mi Ming would be wary. Although Mi Ming was gentle, he was a divine master after all. He naturally had his methods. Therefore, no one dared to ask for Qian Huang's divine spark fragment. Whoever dared to ask for it was courting death. At this moment, with so many powerful people in the Kunlun god realm here, even Yi Xian would be questioned if he wanted to ask for Qian Huang's divine spark fragment. Attack! Kill him quickly! Yi Xian was well aware of this, so he gave the order without hesitation. Furthermore, Sima Yu Yu and the other two shared the same line of thought. They were extremely intelligent and loyal to Mi Ming, so they naturally wouldn't hesitate. Perhaps some experts would be tempted, but unfortunately, they didn't dare to do anything unless they didn't want to live anymore. Qian Huang was filled with regret. He regretted coming to the Divine Master Palace today. How could he not know what these people were up to? Wasn't the Kunlun Divine Domain's purpose of mobilizing the Holy Trinity army just to kill Qiu Wu? Qiu Wu had left, leaving him as the scapegoat. Qian Huang was extremely unwilling. Unfortunately, no matter how he thought about it, his fate had already been decided. Qian Huang was dead. He was a powerhouse of his generation in the demon god realm. In the demon god realm, besides the divine masters, Qian Huang, the most powerful being in the demon god realm, had been killed just like that. He couldn't even die in peace. With a wave of his hand, Yi Xian took Qian Huang's corpse away. It could be said that to Yi Xian, Qian Huang's corpse was his greatest gain. If he could obtain Qiu Wu's corpse as well, then Yi Xian would have really made a huge profit this time. However, Yi Xian didn't dare to guarantee that he would be able to obtain Qiu Wu's corpse. After all, Qiu Wu's corpse still needed to be brought back to report to Mi Ming. As for Yi Xian taking the corpse away, none of the powerful people had any objections. There were definitely countless treasures in Qian Huang's universe ring. However, no matter who it was given to, there would be people who wouldn't accept it. It was better to let the honored angel take it away. Although the honored angel's strength was average, her status was there. When the time came, they would naturally be rewarded according to their merits. At this moment, after killing Qian Huang, the crowd couldn't have the slightest bit of time to rest. Instead, they quickly set up. One by one, the powerful people took action one after another, restoring the Divine Master Palace to its original state. There was also another group of people who dressed up as guards of the Divine Palace and arranged themselves in various parts of the Divine Master Palace in the Demon Divine Domain. Everything was ready. As for the clansmen of the Heavenly Dragon Drunk Shrimp Clan and those who were injured, Yi Xian purposely arranged them into a broken battlefield. After all, no matter how much the aura of the battle was concealed, a divine master like Qiu Wu would be able to sense it. Therefore, at this moment, it was better to set up a fake city to confuse Qiu Wu. Yi Xian didn't really need to be able to make Qiu Wu believe in his arrangements. He just needed to make Qiu Wu hesitate for a moment. That would be enough. Once Qiu Wu didn't immediately discover the abnormality and escape, then what awaited Qiu Wu would be the same fate as Qian Huang. How is it? Can the three of you combine again? Yi Xian asked Sima Yu and the other two. It could be said that they could only rely on them next. Esteemed angel, don't worry. We didn't lose too much. When the Divine Master of the Demon Divine Domain comes over, we can still fight. We have the confidence to take down the Divine Master of the Demon Divine Domain. Yi Xian nodded. He remembered that before the army set off, Mi Ming had summoned Sima Yu and the other two alone. He must have given them some trump card. After all, if he hadn't given them a trump card, then they wouldn't have been so confident. Waiting. Although it was only a few hours of waiting, everyone was incomparably nervous. The next battle was only against one person. However, that person was the Divine Master of the Demon Divine Domain. He was extremely powerful and had many tricks up his sleeve. It could be said that the next battle might be even more intense than the previous one. Yi Xian also waited silently. He didn't devour Qian Huang's corpse. He didn't even check what was in Qian Huang's Qian Kun ring. Because now wasn't the right time. However, what would come, would come. Suddenly, there was a fluctuation in the air and two figures appeared. However, the moment they appeared, one of the figures immediately flashed with light. It was obvious that he was on guard. Yi Xian didn't hesitate at all and quickly rushed forward, reporting, "Esteemed Divine Master, the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp Clan has rebelled." Yi Xian was disguised as a soldier at this moment. Furthermore, he was the only suitable one. Because in Qiu Wu's Divine Palace Guards, it was impossible to have a soldier with the cultivation of a superior divine paragon. It was even more impossible to have a soldier with the cultivation of a divine emperor. Therefore, only Yi Xian could be the soldier who reported this news. As expected, Qiu Wu didn't have the slightest doubt. Instead, he said angrily, "What did you say about the Sky-Drunk Shrimp Clan rebelling?" "Yes, esteemed Divine Master. A branch leader of the Sky-Drunk Shrimp Clan said that their clan leader was executed by esteemed Divine Master, so they rebelled." Chapter 25:13. Chapter 25:13. Chapter 25:13. Annihilate your entire clan. Sure enough, Qiu Wu slapped the Sky Dragon away. The Sky Dragon was sent to lure Qiu Wu away, so he was very clear about what was going on here. At this moment, he also understood Yi Xian's intention. So, he did not resist Qiu Wu's slap at all. He deliberately used the strength of this slap to quickly escape into the distance. Qiu Wu did not expect that his slap was a stroke of luck that the Sky Dragon did not expect. This slap could be said to have saved the Sky Dragon's life. Boom! With a loud sound, the Sky Dragon was directly smashed into a palace, stirring up a cloud of smoke in an instant. At the same time, Yi Xian shouted, "Do it!" Qiu Wu didn't even understand what was going on. After all, he could see through Yi Xian's strength as well. It was impossible for Qiu Wu to guard against a small soldier with such a cultivation level. Qiu Wu didn't even react when he heard Yi Xian shout for him to attack. But then, a domain directly covered him. It was Yu Yu and the other two's Trinity domain. In fact, Yu Yu and the other two had been hiding in the palace, pretending to be weak soldiers. But because Qiu Wu's attention was attracted by Yi Xian, he did not notice at all. At this moment, the three of them had completed their fusion and launched an attack. "Damn, you are a traitor!" Qiu Wu was furious and attacked Yi Xian casually. "Be careful, honored angel." "Boss, be careful." Ding, warning, warning, the host is under a fatal attack. In an instant, countless voices sounded in Yi Xian's ears. Following the system's notification, the Divine Wood Sword attendant appeared beside Yi Xian and directly charged towards Qiu Wu's attack. It was useless. The Divine Wood Sword attendant, who possessed a strong defense, wasn't even able to block the attack in the slightest. At this moment, the eternal domain beside Yi Xian was activated by the system. At the same time, a defensive Dharma was activated. Boom! The ground shattered, and Yi Xian was directly smashed into the ground by this attack. Ferocious magma gushed out in an instant. Just as the attack arrived, the eternal domain was instantly shattered and the Dharma idol was immediately erased. But fortunately, with the protection of the eternal territory and Dharma idol, at least Yi Xian was able to secure one spot. Lord Archangel. Seeing Yi Xian being slapped into the ground, some experts naturally rushed down without a care for anything else. Yi Xian was an angel. If Yi Xian were to fall, even if they completed this mission, not only would they fail, they would also be punished. Luckily, even though Yi Xian was covered in blood, he still managed to get up. "I'm fine. I used all my strength to kill the true demon god, the divine master of the god realm." Yi Xian was bleeding profusely from the corner of his mouth, but he couldn't care less. He immediately gave the order. Countless experts were shocked. Even the divine lord of the demon divine territory, Qiu Wu, widened his eyes. How could a mere lower-level ultimate god survive a blow from a superior-level ultimate god? This was simply a fantasy story. If they didn't see it with their own eyes, who would believe it? This simply defied common sense. Qiu Wu knew very well how powerful his slap was. Not to mention a mere lower-level ultimate god, even a superior level 9 peak ultimate god would not be able to survive. However, Yi Xian was still alive. It was so much so that the injuries on his body were rapidly recovering. At this moment, although Qiu Wu was trapped in the domain of Yu Yu and the other two, he was not too worried because he could already see that the three of them were only intermediate-level ultimate gods. At this moment, Qiu Wu still had the leisure to ask Yi Xian, who are you?" Yi Xian was suspended in midair. Beside him, dozens of experts each took out their magic treasures and guarded him closely. I am the Kunlun Divine Territories revered angel, Divine Territories law enforcer, Jiufeng 60,000 Territories provincial governor, Yi Xian. What a long name. Humph, a mere lower-level ultimate god dares to bring people to assassinate me. Are you tired of living? Xiao Wu looked at Yi Xian. His eyes were filled with disdain and anger at the same time. The people of the Kunlun Divine Territory dared to invade his demon Divine Territory and even set up an ambush in the Divine Master Palace. Suddenly, Xiao Wu thought of Qian Huang. Why didn't I see Divine General Qian Huang? With a wave of his hand, Xiao Wu's body exploded with powerful energy and easily blocked the 10,000 times gravity of the Trinity. Moreover, he still had the mood to ask about other things. As expected of a divine master, his means were simply unimaginable. Qian Huang was a superior level 3rd level ultimate god. Compared to Xiao Wu, he was only 3 levels lower. However, he died under the 10,000 times gravity. However, Xiao Wu could turn a blind eye to it. That was the difference between them. Are you talking about him? Yi Xian casually released Qian Huang's body and quickly put it back. When Xiao Wu saw Qian Huang's body, he was shocked. Qian Huang was the strongest person in the demon divine territory after him. However, he was killed now. It seemed that the people in front of him were not as incompetent as he thought. Xiao Wu, if you surrender now, we can spare your family. Otherwise, all of them will be buried with you. Suddenly, there was a flash of light. A moment later, a group of people appeared. About 3,000 to 4,000 of Xiao Wu's family members were captured. These were all Xiao Wu's close relatives, including Xiao Wu's 1,600 wives and 1,900 children. There were also Xiao Wu's brothers and sisters. At this moment, all of them were captured. Xiao Wu looked over and the anger in his eyes intensified. How dare you? Xiao Wu roared. However, Yi Xian waved his hand. Let him see if we dare or not. After receiving Yi Xian's order, an expert attacked. At least 100 people died in this attack. It could even be said that not even their bones were left. How is it? Do we dare now? Yi Xian asked calmly. Kid, let them go and I can spare your lives. Otherwise, I'll exterminate your entire family. Yi Xian looked at Xiao Wu and said calmly, is that so? However, before that, I'm sure your entire family will be gone. Surrender or die. Choose for yourself. Damn it, human kid. Do you think you can use them to make me surrender? I'm the demon divine territory's divine lord. As long as I'm alive, I can have as many wives and children as I want. Xiao Wu said loudly. If that's the case, then these people are useless. Kill them. Yi Xian did not expect these people to make Xiao Wu surrender. Yi Xian only wanted these people to provoke Xiao Wu so that he would lose his mind in battle. Therefore, Yi Xian did not intend to let these people go from the beginning. Even if Xiao Wu surrendered, Yi Xian would still kill them. He had to eliminate the root of the problem. If Yi Xian let any one of them go, there would be a new rebellion in a few thousand years. Chapter 25:14. Chapter 25:14, Chapter 2514. Miles Ming came to the rescue. As long as some of them were alive, even if they didn't do anything, there would be people from the demon god domain who would use them as an excuse to start a rebellion. Even if Kunlun divine domain and demon god domain were to merge, there would definitely be a bloodbath. Undoubtedly, this time, the demon god domain would be filled with blood. This was something that no one could change. This was also something that had to be done. Today's massacre was to reduce the number of killings in the future. No. Xiao Wu was not a cold-blooded and heartless person. Even if it was like what he said, as long as he wanted, he could have as many wives and children as he wanted. However, these people had been with him for hundreds of thousands of years. How could he not have feelings for them? At this moment, they were all killed by Yi Xian. Xiao Wu was already crazy in front of him. I want you dead. I want to exterminate your human race. Boom. Suddenly, Qiao Wu transformed into his original form. It was a black dragon, a mutated black dragon. Although Qiao Wu's true form was a black dragon, it had a pair of wings. Furthermore, it didn't have a single pair of dragon horns, but 6. On his body, there was a black aura. The black scales that reflected the light showed his strong defense. Kill him. Yi Xian gave the order at the same time. Qiao Wu's strength had exceeded everyone's expectations. Roar. After Qiao Wu transformed into his original form, he immediately let out a terrifying roar. The roar seemed to have some kind of soul-stirring ability. It was so powerful that it blew everyone back. It was as if the sky was falling and the earth was splitting. In the sky, cracks appeared continuously. On the ground, the entire Divine Master Palace turned into nothingness with this roar. It could be said that if it weren't for the restrictions around it, this city would have been destroyed by this roar. This was the power of a Divine Master. It was incomparably terrifying. At this moment, Yi Xian couldn't help but worry. Could you and the other two really take down Qiao Wu? Qiao Wu's valiant strength was extremely frightening. With such terrifying strength, could you and the other two deal with it? However, at this moment, everyone's hopes were pinned on Yu and the other two. Not to mention Yi Xian, even those Divine Emperor Realm experts wouldn't be able to help him in the slightest. After all, Qiao Wu was too strong. All of you must die. I want the entire human race to be buried with my people. A terrifying voice rang out. After Qiao Wu transformed into his true form, his voice became even louder. Suddenly, Sima Yu and the other two combined their thoughts and shouted to Yi Xian, "Esteemed angel, please use your blood to construct a teleportation array and summon esteemed Divine Master." Yi Xian was stunned. My blood? It wasn't that Yi Xian couldn't bear to part with this little bit of blood. The so-called use of blood to construct the teleportation formation didn't really mean that they had to use blood to carve the entire formation. They just needed blood as a catalyst. However, what Yi Xian knew was that using blood to construct a teleportation array to allow others to teleport over required a special bloodline connection or some other special conditions. Yi Xian didn't know when he and Mi Ming had such a connection. Hearing Yi Xian's question, Sima Yu and the other two's combined thoughts urged, "Esteemed angel, don't hesitate. Qiao Wu is too strong. Furthermore, he has the special blessing of the Divine Master. We are no match for him at all. Only by asking esteemed Divine Master to personally take action can we obtain victory." Yi Xian was extremely puzzled. However, since Sima Yu and the other two's combined thoughts said so, there must be a reason. Could it be that Mi Ming had set up a restriction on his body? However, he didn't have the slightest bit of abnormality. Even the system didn't detect it. What the hell is going on? Yi Xian was extremely puzzled as he set up the array. At this moment, Qiao Wu had already launched his attack. It could be said that the powerful combination of Sima Yu and the other two were actually being suppressed. If it weren't for the fact that the three of them had many special abilities and that Mi Ming had indeed given them some special treasures, they probably wouldn't have been able to hold on. While he was puzzled, Yi Xian finally finished setting up the array. After the array was set up, there was no need for Yi Xian to activate it. It was already shining brightly. Yi Xian knew that Mi Ming had already sensed the situation here and came over. The light was shining brightly. This was a teleportation that crossed two divine realms. Perhaps only an expert like Mi Ming could do it so easily. After a moment, Mi Ming appeared in the teleportation array. Greetings to the Divine Master. Everyone knelt down to greet her. Even the injured soldiers, as well as the members of the Sky Dragon Drunk Shrimp clan, had already knelt down. Only Yi Xian remained standing. It wasn't that Yi Xian was being rude, but that he found that there was a mysterious power surrounding him, making it impossible for him to kneel. You're injured? Unexpectedly, the first thing Mi Ming said after appearing wasn't to ask about the situation on the battlefield. She didn't even look at Qiao Wu's battle. Instead, she asked about Yi Xian's injuries with concern. Thank you for your concern, Divine Lord. This subject is fine. Yi Xian replied. His answer could be said to be correct, but Mi Ming revealed a displeased expression. From now on, you and I don't need to be so distant. Wait for me here. I'll get rid of that evil dragon first. Yi Xian was even more confused now. Just what had happened? Why did it feel like Mi Ming had become a completely different person? Mi Ming's figure flickered and disappeared. When she reappeared, she was already beside Xiao Wu. It's you. Divine Lord of the Kunlun Divine Region, you actually dare to come to my demon god Divine Region? Are you not afraid of punishment? Punishment? What punishment? Yi Xian was extremely confused, but he suddenly recalled a fact. No matter how fierce the war between the two divine realms was, the divine lords of the two divine realms would definitely not step into each other's territory. At most, they would meet on the Master God battlefield. If it was before, this situation wouldn't have aroused any suspicion. However, when Xiao Wu said the word punishment, one couldn't help but wonder what kind of power could punish a divine lord. Moreover, just because a divine lord left his own divine realm and came to another divine realm, he would be punished. No matter how one looked at it, this matter was extremely strange. Mi Ming looked at Xiao Wu, her expression neither sad nor happy. She said, "You injured him. I'll do it. I won't be punished." What? He's your partner? That's impossible. He's so weak. How can that be? Moreover, you came here personally? That's impossible. Xiao Wu suddenly glared at Yi Xian, but this made Yi Xian even more confused. What did the matter between the two divine lords have to do with him? Why is Xiao Wu glaring at me for no reason? Alright, it's time to end this. From now on, the demon god divine region will be ruled by my Kunlun divine region. Chapter 25:15. The dust has settled. Yi Xian understood that they had entered an alternate space or a special secret realm to fight. Because of how terrifying the power of two god masters was, it would definitely cause a great deal of destruction. If they did not leave, at least all the living beings in the 1,000 realms around the God Master Palace would be wiped out. The aftermath of a battle between two God Masters was not something that an ordinary person could imagine. Lord Angel, what should we do? Seeing Mi Ming leave again, the experts could only ask Yi Xian again and wait for Yi Xian's orders. Yi Xian thought for a moment, then said, "Go, open the teleportation formation of the main god battlefield in the demon god's domain's Divine Lord Palace. According to the original plan, clear out the stubborn members of the entire demon god's domain as soon as possible." Yes. The experts received the order and immediately went to the teleportation array. When Yi Xian brought the experts over, the Kunlun god domain was already preparing. Countless soldiers were gathered, waiting for this moment. Once they took down the god master of the demon god domain, the experts would lead their soldiers to clear out the entire demon god domain. According to Yi Xian's orders, they would rescue all the humans in the demon god domain and kill all resistance. Without the god master's command, the demon god domain would be devoured by the Kunlun god domain. As for Yi Xian himself, he stayed in the god master palace under the protection of hundreds of experts, waiting for Mi Ming's return. At the same time, he was also in charge of the overall situation. Elite soldiers were constantly teleported over, and once they arrived, they would immediately be sent out. This time, the Kunlun god domain had mobilized a total of 300 billion soldiers. These 300 billion soldiers were the forces to clear out the entire demon god domain. Of course, after clearing out the entire demon god domain, other than leaving behind 10 billion soldiers to guard the place, the rest would return to the Kunlun god domain. Without Xiao Wu's command, and because the 8 great divine generals were all killed, the demon god domain did not even have a decent resistance. During the entire war, the demon god domain did not even gather an army of more than 1 billion soldiers. Cities were breached one after another, secret realms were destroyed, and stubborn tribes were wiped out one after another. The war lasted for a full 30 years. After 30 years, the demon god domain was finally at peace. Mi Ming did not return, but Yi Xian could only temporarily manage the 2 god domains. After all, he was the two god domain's highest status. Sky Dragon was lucky enough to survive. During these 30 years, he led his clansmen to battle everywhere, cooperating with Yi Xian's actions. Because Sky Tiger had already been conferred the title of the new demon god's divine domain's divine master by Yi Xian. This wait lasted for 100 years. Calm. Mi Ming and Xiao Wu had entered a special secret realm. They had only fought for 3 days in the secret realm, but 100 years had passed in the god domain. Yi Xian directly put away Xiao Wu's corpse. He knew that since Mi Ming threw the corpse out, it proved that Mi Ming wasn't interested in Xiao Wu's corpse at all. Yi Xian's cultivation did not improve at all after 100 years. Yi Xian would not be polite with Xiao Wu's corpse. Yi Xian handed Mi Ming the authority of the god domain's guardian angel. What Yi Xian did most of the time was to investigate Luolua's whereabouts. He was the demon god domain's holy son of the 9 paths. However, he only got one result. Luolua was not in the demon god domain. However, there were 3 possible places to do so. The first was the demon god domain's ancestral land. The second was a secret realm called the Cave of Dreams. The third was the legendary land. After Mi Ming returned, Yi Xian handed over his authority and left the demon god domain's divine master palace without hesitation. Yi Xian had to be responsible for the trillions of lives in the 2 god domains, so he did not look for Luoluo. But now that Mi Ming had returned, Yi Xian naturally went to do his own thing. Mi Ming did not stop Yi Xian, nor did she ask him anything. However, Mi Ming did not take away Yi Xian's guardian angel identity medallion. Yi Xian did not care too much. Since Mi Ming had returned, he could leave. In fact, Yi Xian had wanted to leave many times in the past 100 years. But now, he finally had the chance. Yi Xian's first target was the demon god domain's ancestral land. The primogenitor's land was special. It was considered a holy land in the demon god domain. Anyone from the demon god domain could enter as they wished. It was said that there were many experts inside, but they didn't care about the matters of the outside world. Back then, Yi Xian had only sent experts to seal off the ancestral land and had not rashly sent troops in. After leaving the Divine Master Palace, Yi Xian did not hesitate. Back then, he had been watched by 2 people from the god domain. In addition, there was no danger, so he did not devour Qian Huang's body. But now, Yi Xian was not going to wait any longer. These were the corpses of 2 superior god emperors. In addition to their interspatial rings, what kind of surprise could they bring to Yi Xian? Yi Xian thought to himself. At the same time, he had already started devouring. Yi Xian was devouring Qian Huang's body. As for the interspatial rings, he did not devour them. Ding! System notification, host has made a breakthrough. Current level 9 lower ultimate god realm. The crazy leveling speed was simply beyond Yi Xian's imagination. However, it was within Yi Xian's expectations. After all, he had devoured a superior god emperor. Again, this time, I'll devour the corpse of the divine master from the demon god domain. Yi Xian then waved his hand and devoured Xiao Wu's corpse. The system notification came as expected. Ding! System notification, host has made a breakthrough. Current level 9 middle ultimate god realm. 9 levels in a row. It was indeed the body of a divine master. The leveling speed was simply terrifying. Moreover, Yi Xian felt that there might be a limit to leveling up. Otherwise, by devouring the corpses of 2 superior god emperors, Yi Xian might be able to reach the lower god emperor realm in one go. However, Yi Xian was already satisfied to be able to break through to the level 9 middle ultimate god realm in one go. After all, he still had 2 interspatial rings resources that he had not devoured yet. However, at this moment, the system notification came again. Ding! System notification, host has devoured the corpse of the divine master from the demon god domain. You have obtained a special attribute, the divine domain's blessing. The divine domain's blessing was a special attribute unique to the divine master. It allowed him to bless himself with the divine domain's blessing. If people in the divine domain believed in the divine master, they could even activate a special faith cultivation. Yi Xian frowned slightly. The divine domain's blessing. Chapter 25:16. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation Ancestral Realm, Ancestral Divine Beast. Unfortunately, Yi Xian had obtained the blessing of the Divine Territory's providence after devouring Qiu Wu. Therefore, it was not perfect. It was impossible to expect the people of the Divine Territory to believe in him. Therefore, the so-called cultivation of faith was not fated with Yi Xian. In fact, Yi Xian thought that the so-called blessing of the Divine Territory's providence was similar to Yi Xian's own devouring space. It was just a lot bigger. It was a pity that neither Qian Huang nor Qiu Wu were killed by Yi Xian. Otherwise, he would have been able to obtain even more rewards. However, Yi Xian was not that greedy. Yi Xian was already satisfied with being able to increase his level by so many levels. System: classify the resources in these two interspatial rings. Pick out the useful ones and I'll devour the useless ones. Was Yi Xian still at the pace of increasing his level? He had increased his level to level 9 medium ultimate god in one go. Such a terrifying speed of leveling up was already unimaginable to countless people. Was Yi Xian going to continue to prompt his level? Ding! Resource classification successful. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 3 precious resources. Precious resources? What was that? Naturally, it was not something simple that could trigger the system's prompt. However, Yi Xian was still very curious. What was it that could trigger the system's prompt? Moreover, it was a precious resource. Yi Xian opened the interspatial rings and immediately checked them. He found nothing. The system had singled out an elixir, a gourd, and a fan. System: detect these 3 items. I want to see if they are sacred items. Yi Xian instructed the system. A moment later, the system's prompt sounded. Ding! System notification: target specified, unknown dragon egg. Unknown dragon egg? In other words, the system could only detect that this was a dragon egg. However, it did not know what kind of dragon egg it was. Ding! System notification: the host can only hatch this dragon egg through faith, divine power, or nomological power. What was this? It actually required faith, divine power, and nomological power to hatch? Was this dragon egg really that miraculous? Also, what kind of dragon was it? Could it be that it was Qiu Wu's descendant? Yi Xian was filled with doubts. However, he could not get any answers because no one could. Yi Xian casually tossed the dragon egg to the side. He didn't have the time to hatch it right now. Yi Xian translation: gourd. The system notification: gourd. At least, it looked like a gourd. Ding! System notification: the target is a special identification item. The owner of this item is an order envoy. Order? Master? What was this? Yi Xian was extremely puzzled. Could it be that this gourd only had one use? Was it used to prove his identity? System: what is this translation? Translation Fong Y translation How Lucas translation Communication things translation Yi Xian casually fiddled with the gourd, but did not know how to use it. It seemed that this thing could only be put aside for the time being, just like the dragon egg. In the end, Yi Xian finally picked up the fan. However, he was thinking that there were already 2 extremely strange things that Yi Xian could not use. He didn't believe that the last item would be the same. System: what's the use of this thing? Ding! System notification: target is the infinite cosmos fan. Within this fan, there is an independent secret realm. A fan that contained a mystic realm. Yi Xian played with the limitless universe fan back and forth, but he was inexplicably shocked. Yi Xian had been to countless mystic realms and had seen many of them. However, let alone seen one, he had never even heard of a fan that was a mystic realm. One had to know that since it was called a mystery realm, the space inside would naturally be extremely large. Furthermore, it would definitely be inhabited by living beings. However, a fan that contained a mystic realm was something that Yi Xian could not understand no matter how hard he tried. As he waved the mystic realm in his hand, Yi Xian even had a ridiculous thought. Did the mystic realm turn upside down with just a wave of his hand? Of course, Yi Xian was only thinking about it for a moment. This limitless universe fan was rather interesting. At the same time, Yi Xian could not understand it. At the same time, Yi Xian also thought about what kind of powerhouse would be able to forge such a fan. A fan, a mystic realm. Casually playing with a world. This feeling was rather novel to Yi Xian. He had finished looking through the 3 items. However, in Yi Xian's heart, he still felt that something was wrong. However, after thinking for a long time, he still could not figure out what the problem was. Helpless, Yi Xian finally walked towards the ancestral land. Since he could not figure it out, he would not think about it for the time being. When the time was right, all his doubts would naturally be solved. Whether it was the unknown dragon egg, the limitless universe fan in Yi Xian's hand, or the gourd that proved his identity as an order envoy. One day, Yi Xian would be able to understand everything. As for now, it was more important to find Luo Luo. Although the ancestral land was sealed off by Yi Xian, if Yi Xian wanted to enter, no one would stop him. Therefore, at this moment, Yi Xian had already entered the ancestor realm. The ancestral land was originally a mystic realm. Under normal circumstances, it was called the ancestor realm. However, this ancestor realm was not a place that anyone could enter as they wished. Before the Kunlun god domain conquered the demon god domain, this was a gathering place for geniuses. It was also a place where many powerhouses came to seek opportunities. After the Kunlun god domain conquered the demon god domain, in fact, it was the same here. In fact, it was even more brutal than before. Because of its special existence, the ancestor realm did not have any rules or restrictions. Even if the current ruling human race geniuses entered, if they died, they could not blame others. Moreover, there were many atavistic beasts in the ancestor realm. It could be said that it was extremely dangerous. At this moment, Yi Xian was advancing carefully. However, he had only entered the ancestor realm for less than an hour before he encountered his first atavistic divine beast. The environment of the ancestor realm was special, and it was very easy to create such atavistic divine beasts. Yi Xian looked at the atavistic divine beast in front of him and was inexplicably shocked. This was a tiger-type divine beast. If it was in the divine world, then it would be called the winged lightning tiger. Yi Xian had seen this kind of divine beast before. Not to mention its strength, its size was generally the height of a person. But in this ancestor realm, this winged lightning tiger was the height of 5 or 6 people. It was as if all the divine beasts and plants in this ancestor realm had been enlarged countless times due to the power of atavistic divine beast. It was not just the winged lightning tiger. Even a stalk of grass would become extremely large. Moreover, their aggressive nature was extremely strong. Because these atavistic divine beasts had already returned to their roots. In their intelligence, there was only cruelty and bloodthirstiness. Chapter 25:17. An imperfect field. What was an atavism divine beast? The so-called atavistic divine beast was a situation where certain divine beasts were affected by certain forces and evolved in the opposite direction. In addition to cultivation, it was also necessary for divine beasts to evolve themselves. For divine beasts, their innate abilities were their best skills. However, the phenomenon of atavism could be said to be extremely rare in the god realm. After all, in the realm of the gods, divine beasts were generally considered to be geniuses. Unfortunately, this was the most normal thing in the ancestor realm. However, the atavism of the ancestor realm was somewhat different from the atavism of the divine realm. That was because the atavism of the ancestor realm also degenerated the intelligence. On the other hand, the so-called divine beast geniuses in the divine realm's ancestral transformation would only increase their strength, but not their intelligence. Therefore, perhaps it was because of the special environment here. The winged thunder tiger attacked Yi Xian at this moment. As it moved, the faint sound of wind and thunder could be heard. A berserk power erupted in an instant. Boom! Of course, Yi Xian would not allow the winged lightning tiger to succeed, so when the winged lightning tiger was about to hit him, he had already used infinite teleportation to dodge. However, Yi Xian was fine after dodging, but the position he was originally standing in was a tragedy. With a loud bang, rocks flew everywhere. Countless flowers and trees were instantly destroyed. Some of the weaker divine beasts that were closer were directly smashed to death by the aftermath of this attack. Yi Xian frowned. This winged thunder tiger had such great strength. Megatron, go! Yi Xian did not waste any more time. With a wave of his hand, he released Wei Zhentian. Wei Zhentian immediately transformed into the god-slaying sword. At the same time, the god-slaying sword also flew out. The two god-slaughtering swords circled around the winged thunder tiger, dancing non-stop. Roar! The winged thunder tiger roared and tried to slap the godslayer away with its claws. What shocked Yi Xian the most was that when the winged thunder tiger's front claws struck the god-slaying sword, it did not suffer any damage. One had to know that the power of the god-slaying sword was not something that a mere winged thunder tiger could withstand. System, detect the winged thunder tiger's strength. I want to see how he can withstand the sharpness of the godslayer. Ding! System notification. Target specified, lower level ultimate god, Divine Thunder Claw. The Divine Thunder Claw was a powerful attack that contained the power of the Divine Thunder. Any attack would trigger the attack of the Divine Thunder. Moreover, the Divine Thunder Claw also contained an extremely powerful law of lightning. When attacking, it would activate the law of lightning. Ding! System notification, detected winged lightning tiger. Special divine ability, lightning tiger roar. Host, please take note. He had actually triggered a system notification. It was just a divine beast of the lower rank 1 ultimate god realm. One should know that Yi Xian was a medium rank 9 ultimate god. Could it be that this was some sort of special ability that could threaten Yi Xian? Yi Xian did not make another move because in Yi Xian's mind, Wei Zhentian was more than enough to kill the winged thunder tiger. However, the battle that followed was out of Yi Xian's expectations. Moreover, Yi Xian finally knew what was so special about the winged thunder tiger's special ability. At that moment, the two god-slaying swords were continuously attacking. They even used the 10,000 swords to attack. The sword lights that filled the sky had almost completely surrounded the winged thunder tiger. Logically speaking, the winged thunder tiger would not be able to escape this time. However, what Yi Xian did not expect was that the winged thunder tiger's body would explode with flashes of lightning. After that, the winged thunder tiger quickly moved to the side at a speed that was comparable to teleportation. Moreover, the most important thing was that when the winged thunder tiger moved, lightning would constantly attack in all directions. Was this the divine ability, lightning tiger roar? What a great lightning tiger roar! It was actually so powerful. Yi Xian frowned as he watched all this. Yi Xian could tell that the lightning tiger roar was actually an imperfect domain. An imperfect domain was not just a half-formed domain. An imperfect domain was actually a mature domain. However, it was different from a normal domain. The winged thunder tiger's domain was missing a lot of things. Most domains, even if they were of a single attribute, would have a small amount of other laws mixed in. This was because this was the only way to make the domain more perfect. Furthermore, these powers did not need to be controlled. They were naturally formed when the domain was used. However, the winged thunder tiger's imperfect domain only had one type of power. The power of divine lightning. The powerful lightning bolt surrounded the winged thunder tiger, not allowing it to go more than half a meter away from it. From the outside, one would even think that the winged thunder tiger was wearing a suit of lightning armor. Every time the winged thunder tiger made a move, the lightning would follow. Whether it was to defend or attack, the winged thunder tiger did not hesitate at all. This was the lightning tiger roar? The power of an imperfect domain? One had to admit that pure power was able to explode with great power. However, Yi Xian knew in his heart that this situation wouldn't last for long. Wei Zhentian, continue attacking. Yi Xian still did not make a move. He wanted to see what kind of tricks the winged thunder tiger could play. However, Yi Xian was still shocked that the first divine beast he encountered in the ancestor realm was a low-level ultimate god. Yi Xian might have mobilized tens of thousands of ultimate gods when he attacked the demon god realm's divine master Qiu Wu. However, that was a third of the entire Kunlun divine realm's strength. In other words, how many ultimate gods were there in the entire Kunlun divine realm? Probably not more than 100,000 or 200,000. In the Kunlun divine realm, there were only so few ultimate gods in 3 million realms. On average, there would only be one ultimate god in every 100,000 realms. In a single realm, there should be at least 10 million people. In that case, how many people would be able to become a divine venerable in order to become such a genius? It would have been fine if he did not calculate. After doing so, he knew that it was not easy to cultivate to the ultimate god realm. However, in front of Yi Xian right now, a random divine beast had jumped out of the ancestor realm. How could Yi Xian not be shocked? Wei Zhentian and the god-slaying sword were still attacking continuously. The powerful destructive power destroyed the entire area. However, Yi Xian did not make a move at all. He just quietly observed. Since there were a large number of ancestral divine beasts in the ancestor realm, Yi Xian needed to grasp the characteristics of these ancestral divine beasts first. Only in this way would Yi Xian be able to better complete his plan. Chapter 25:18. Dharma Idol Statue Evil Beast, Die. Yi Xian roared. The god-slaying sword suddenly unleashed a powerful attack. Deity-slaying slash. Boom! As if the heavens were falling, a ray of light flashed and crashed into the winged thunder tiger. Rumble, no matter how powerful the winged thunder tiger's lightning tiger stride was, how could it be a match for Yi Xian? Yi Xian was more than an entire realm higher than it. Therefore, when Yi Xian wanted to kill it, it was only a matter of one slash. A canyon appeared on the ground. That huge canyon was left behind when the winged thunder tiger was sent flying by Yi Xian. One slash, instant kill. So what if the winged thunder tiger was some kind of mythical beast with special abilities? So what? In the face of absolute power, it had no ability to resist. Yi Xian continued forward. Along the way, he encountered many mythical beasts blocking his way. These mythical beasts were all mythical beasts with worrisome intelligence. Although they were stronger than the outside world, they were useless without intelligence. Of course, Yi Xian was clear that the mythical beasts he encountered were only the outermost layer of the progenitor realm. The truly powerful mythical beasts would not wander around like this. In the progenitor realm, there were 10 voids and 4 caves. The so-called 10 voids were similar to the families of the god realm, but they were not formed by one clan, but by many different clans. The 4 caves, on the other hand, were similar to schools and sections. If the saints of the outside world had reached a certain level of talent, they would have the opportunity to study in the 4 caves. In addition to the 10 voids and 4 caves, there were also some wandering tribes. But in the progenitor realm, they were called Jia. Of course, in Yi Xian's eyes, the so-called Jia was the meaning of a village. The ancestor realm was originally a special existence attached to the demon god's divine domain, but because of its special nature, there were not only divine beasts from the demon god's divine domain here. Therefore, the progenitor realm was higher than the demon god realm. Yi Xian didn't know how many god domains there were like the demon god domain, ruled by divine beasts. But Yi Xian knew that within the ancestor realm, there were more than 1,000 god domains, holy princes and princes who cultivated there. Of course, there were a small number of humans in the ancestor realm. Although humans were similarly looked down upon in the ancestor realm, they weren't enslaved like they were in the outside world. Unfortunately, the divine realms ruled by divine beasts mostly bullied the human race. Therefore, the number of humans in the ancestor realm was extremely few. Yi Xian advanced for a full 3 days before he saw the first solution. There weren't many people in this group, only a few hundred. These people planted divine herbs by themselves, hunted divine beasts, and searched for resources to cultivate. They were quite free. And in reality, in the ancestor realm, practically every solution was like this. However, they still had to be subordinate to one of the 10 voids and 4 caves, otherwise, it would be very difficult for them to survive. Yi Xian looked at the flag at the entrance of this solution with some doubts. Because, above this flag, there was actually a giant peng. A peng wasn't considered a powerful divine beast. Finally, in the entire demon god domain, there wasn't a single peng that had cultivated to god venerable realm. But, why was this solution using a peng as its flag? With doubt in his mind, Yi Xian directly walked towards the solution. No one stopped Yi Xian, but seeing Yi Xian, a stranger, many people revealed curious gazes. This passerby, where are you from, and where are you heading to? At this time, an old man walked up to Yi Xian and asked Yi Xian. I'm from the demon god domain, I'm heading to the 4 caves to study. In fact, Yi Xian didn't have any goal. The news he received only said that Luo Luo might be in the ancestor realm, but it didn't say where she was. After all, this news was just speculation. Oh, so you're a guest from the outside world. Come, come, come. Today is our solution gathering. Why don't you stay and leave tomorrow? The old man was very enthusiastic and Yi Xian also wanted to inquire about some information, so he didn't decline. As he followed the old man to the solution's big house, Yi Xian discovered that most of the people in this solution were old people and children. There were no young people in sight. Senior, why don't I see any young people? Haha, today is our solution's once-in-a-century wilderness festival. Young people should have gone to the wilderness to find a secret place to enjoy themselves. Perhaps this wilderness festival will bring new life to our solution. Yi Xian had a strange expression on his face. From the old man's words, Yi Xian seemed to understand that this solution didn't have a tradition of marriage. Instead, on the wilderness festival, everyone would find someone they liked and enjoy themselves in the wilderness. However, this was their custom after all, and Yi Xian had no right to make irresponsible remarks. The big house was built with some kind of requiem divine wood. Although it was called a big house, it wasn't very big. At this moment, several old men were carving something in the big house. When Yi Xian arrived, he was attracted by what they were carving. Old man, what are you carving? Oh, you mean these? These are Dharma images. Our solution relies on these things to make a living. Dharma images. Yi Xian was shocked and picked up a sculpture from the side. The sculpture was very strange. At least, Yi Xian couldn't see what it looked like. Dare I ask, how do you use this? Yi Xian asked the old man curiously. The old man didn't hide anything from Yi Xian. He looked up at the sculpture in Yi Xian's hand and replied, "You'll know when you inject your divine power." Yi Xian nodded and injected his divine power into the sculpture without hesitation. In an instant, the sculpture turned into a strange Dharma image. Yi Xian could clearly feel the powerful strength of the Dharma image. The Dharma image was at least equivalent to a lower-grade 3rd-level ultimate god. Although it required Yi Xian to continuously inject his divine power to maintain it, it was still a Dharma image after all. Moreover, it was a Dharma image that could be used endlessly. One should know that Yi Xian also had many Dharma images. His Wanzun bloodline could be fused with the Dharma image. However, it was difficult for Yi Xian to accept the fact that a Dharma image was made in the form of a sculpture. This was simply beyond Yi Xian's imagination. How could such a strange thing exist? If this Dharma image were to spread to the divine realm, then the fighting style of the divine realm would be changed. After all, the power of the Dharma image was too strong and domineering. Could the Dharma image attack be activated by injecting one's divine power? Who had seen it before? Chapter 25:19. Translator, Nyoibo Studio Editor. Nyoibo Studio collecting protection fee. Yi Xian had a strange expression on his face when he heard the old man's words. What did he mean by, I can take a look at the Dharma idol carving ability? If any one of them went out into the world, they would definitely be a powerful existence that even the Divine Master would have to show respect to. Although Yi Xian didn't know how long it would take for these people to carve a Dharma idol, the fact that they could mass-produce Dharma idols was enough to shock countless people. At least, Yi Xian didn't know what to say at this moment. Old man, is there something special about your Dharma idol carving? Why haven't I seen it before? It would be strange if you had seen it before. Do you see this big house? You can only carve Dharma idols in this big house. You can't carve them anywhere else. Do you think this big house is just an ordinary house? Let me tell you, this big house is the most precious treasure of the great Pengjie. It is a peerless treasure passed down by the ancestors of the great Pengjie. This big house was a treasure? Yi Xian suddenly raised his head and looked in the direction of the big house. Earlier, when Yi Xian had just arrived, he had also observed this big house. However, he had only discovered that the big house was made of special materials. Now, after hearing the old man's words, Yi Xian realized that the big house wasn't just made of special materials. In fact, its function was also extremely special. Only in this big house could one carve Dharma idols. So, what was so special about this big house? System, detect this big house for me. I want to know why this big house can be used to carve Dharma idols. Yi Xian instructed the system. Being able to carve Dharma idols was simply too powerful. If Yi Xian could master this technique, how much more powerful would he be? Ding! System notice, host, please take note. Host's current level of power is insufficient to detect this. D****. Yi Xian was inwardly annoyed. It couldn't detect this. This didn't feel good at all. Just how special was this house? Even the system had no way of detecting it. However, since the system couldn't do anything about it, perhaps Yi Xian could only ask. Senior, may I ask what is so special about this big house? Why is it possible to carve Dharma images in this big house? Yi Xian was very sincere, and the people of Yijia were not very guarded either. Perhaps they had lived in seclusion for too long and had long forgotten about killing. Young man, this house of ours is the magic treasure that made our ancestor famous all those years ago, and it's extremely powerful. All those years ago, our ancestor rock god was an extraordinary expert during the primeval times, and the ancient formation in his possession had even devoured countless experts. Later on, when the old ancestor went into seclusion, he used an ancient formation to create this large house. This house contained the countless experts that the old ancestor had devoured. Moreover, the old ancestor didn't truly destroy their primordial spirits. Instead, he gave them a chance at eternal life. As long as the ancient array was not destroyed, they would be able to obtain eternal life within the ancient array. Of course, as a price, they naturally had to make some sacrifices. It was their mission to refine these Dharma images for us. In fact, every time we carve, the primordial spirits of those experts protect us. Sigh, forget it. It's hard for you to understand even if I tell you all this. Those who aren't part of Yijia's rock god will never understand the mysteries within. Needless to say, Yi Xian really didn't quite understand the concept of the Dharma images and the big house, let alone the great formation. However, Yi Xian did know one thing, and that was that the rock on the flag at the door of Yijia's rock god was definitely not simple. An expert from the primeval times? Yi Xian shook his head helplessly. Too much time had passed, and Yi Xian had heard very little about it. According to legend, during the primeval times, the realm of the gods was in a state of chaos. It was the experts from the primeval times who opened up the heavens and created countless mystic realms. At the same time, they used the materials that they used to create the mystic realms and divine realms to create an even more vast realm of the gods. Unfortunately, this was just a legend. Only the experts from the primeval times would know the truth. Yi Xian shook his head helplessly. He now understood that he was not destined to learn the Dharma image carving technique. No matter how powerful Yi Xian was, there was no way he could learn the Dharma image carving technique. Even if he did learn it, once he left the big house, he would not be able to carve anymore. Yi Xian watched the old men carve silently. Although it was useless for him to learn it, that didn't mean that Yi Xian wasn't interested. However, just as Yi Xian was observing, he heard a loud sound. Boom! It sounded like a heavy object had fallen to the ground. While Yi Xian was puzzled, the people from Yi Jie's rock god carving technique looked terrified. It's them. Why are they here? Senior, who are you talking about? Why are they here? Yi Xian asked curiously. Of course, Yi Xian didn't forget to use his divine consciousness to check the situation outside. At this moment, outside the Yi Jie's rock god carving technique, more than a dozen people were walking down from a gigantic mythical beast. The mythical beast was extremely huge. Just by standing there, it looked like it could crush the entire Yi Jie's rock god carving technique with one stomp. These people all had extremely disdainful looks on their faces. It was as if the Yi Jie's rock god carving technique was not worthy of their attention. The people from Yi Jie's rock god carving technique are all dead? Suddenly, a loud voice rang out. A burly man with a huge hammer in his hand was shouting loudly as he slammed it on the ground. Boom! 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 The entire ground shook. Strangely, the ground was not damaged at all. People from Yi Jie's rock god carving technique, get the hell out here. It was the same burly man who shouted loudly. Yi Xian was about to get up and go out, but an old man immediately stopped him. Young man, don't move. Stay in the big house. The big house of the Yi Jie's rock god carving technique is not a place they can enter easily. No matter what happens, don't come out. Yi Xian saw that the old man was serious and nodded in agreement. Hurry up, why are you dilly-dallying? Hurry up. The burly man kept urging, and the elderly and children of the Yi Jie all walked to the entrance of the Yi Jie's rock god carving technique. May I know the reason for your visit, sir? The old man who first led Yi Xian into the Yi Jie's rock god carving technique stood in front of the crowd and asked them. What's the matter? Huh, what's the matter? Old man, isn't it time to pay the protection fee? Protection fee? Hearing this, Yi Xian frowned slightly, but he didn't do anything. Instead, he waited quietly. Sir, haven't we already paid the protection fee of the Yi Jie's rock god carving technique? Why do we still need to collect it? Huh, the rules have changed. From now on, we'll pay once every 50 years. Are all the young people of the Yi Jie all dead? Hurry up and get out here. Sir, today is the Yi Jie's Wilderness Festival. The young people outside have yet to return. But sir, why did you suddenly change the rules of the protection fee? This is a rule that has been in use for thousands of years. How can you change it just like that? Chapter 25-20. 2 slaps in the face. Aya, it's the Wilderness Festival today. Why didn't you say so earlier? Haha. Brothers, let's go find those ladies from the Great Rock Jia and have some fun. I didn't expect our luck to be so good to come across the Great Rock Jia's Wilderness Festival. Haha, that's right. The Wilderness Festival is just that. No matter what we do, we won't be breaking the rules. Who knows, maybe we'll be able to leave our blood behind in the Great Rock Jia in the future. Those people had a smug look on their faces. As they spoke, they released their divine senses to search the area. However, they did not forget their mission this time. Old man, hurry up and prepare. We'll follow the old rules and pay enough protection fees. Then we can talk. Otherwise, you know the consequences. When the old man heard those people, he immediately understood what they wanted to do. The Wilderness Festival was the most important festival for the Great Rock Jia to continue the bloodline of the Great Rock Jia. How could he allow these people to ruin it? Therefore, the old man immediately stood in front of those people and said loudly, "Sirs, you can't do this. This is the Great Rock Jie's Wilderness Festival. You can't ruin it." Seeing that the old man had stopped him, the big man was very angry and pushed him away. "Scram! What I want to do is not something you can control. It's just the Great Rock Jie. It's your honor to be favored by us." Boom! The old man was immediately pushed away by the big man. Just as the old man was about to crash into a house, a figure suddenly appeared and caught the old man. Yi Xian had already seen that other than the leader, who was a third-grade mid-divine sovereign, the others were only inferior divine sovereigns. Of course, even so, they were already an extremely terrifying force. However, Yi Xian could easily deal with them. That was why Yi Xian appeared. Those people naturally saw Yi Xian catching the old man. At this moment, the burly man looked at Yi Xian in confusion and suddenly asked, "Damn it, who are you? Why are you here? You're not from Dapengjia. Tell me, who are you?" Yi Xian did not know how they had determined that he was not a member of Dapengjia, but since Yi Xian had come out, he wanted to teach these people a lesson so that they would not bully the members of Dapengjia. "Elder, you rest first. Leave the matters here to me." From the moment Yi Xian caught him, the old man knew that Yi Xian's strength wasn't simple. At this moment, he didn't know what to say, so he could only nod. Yi Xian walked towards those people step by step and asked, "Who are you to collect protection fees? What do you think you are? Bandits? Bandits? Huh, you want to meddle in other people's business? Let's see if you have the ability, kid. Listen well, we're from Kuei-jia. If you know what's good for you, kneel down and admit your mistakes obediently. We're in a good mood today, so we can't be bothered to argue with you." Kuei-jia? Wasn't that the same as Dapengjia? Kuei-jia was just a village in Yi Xian's eyes. But why would someone from Kuei-jia come to Dapengjia to collect protection fees? Of course, Yi Xian didn't ask these questions now. Instead, he continued walking towards the burly man. Yi Xian didn't move quickly, but as he got closer and closer to those people, they could clearly feel the pressure. Aura. It was Yi Xian's aura. In fact, it was this aura that suppressed these people and made them feel uncomfortable. Suddenly, Yi Xian's figure moved abruptly. He actually teleported in front of the burly man. The burly man was so shocked that he subconsciously took a few steps back. However, Yi Xian was like a ghost. No matter where the burly man retreated, he still stood within one step of him. The burly man recovered from his initial shock and was immediately annoyed. "Kid, I think you have a death wish." As he spoke, the burly man clenched his fist and tried to punch Yi Xian. However, Yi Xian was faster than him. Slap. A resounding slap sounded. At the same time, the burly man was sent flying by Yi Xian's slap. He smashed into the ground, creating a crater 100 meters deep. The burly man jumped out of the crater. He looked at Yi Xian with a gaze that was 30% shock and 70% anger. "How dare you hit me? Damn it, kid, you're dead meat. How dare you hit me? Today, I'll use your blood to cleanse my soul-shaking hammer." The burly man roared loudly. At the same time, he raised his giant hammer and attacked Yi Xian. Slap. A crisp and resounding sound rang out. No one expected that the burly man would be sent flying by Yi Xian just as he raised his giant hammer. Another crater appeared. However, everyone was dumbfounded by what they saw. In the eyes of the great Pengjia's people, this burly man was already an extremely powerful existence. No one in the entire Great Pengjia was a match for him. However, such a powerful person could not even retaliate in the slightest in front of Yi Xian. It might be easy to defeat an enemy, but to send them flying with one slap after another like Yi Xian, it was clear that Yi Xian's strength was much higher than this burly man's. As for the burly man's subordinates, they were also dumbfounded. They were from the Kuei-jia. The Kuei-jia were the tyrants in this area. They had always been the ones bullying others. When had it ever been their turn to be beaten? Moreover, the one being beaten was a burly man who was considered an expert among the Kuei-jie. Therefore, they were stunned. As for the burly man, he was also stunned by Yi Xian's second slap to the face. If he had been caught off guard by Yi Xian's sneak attack, then there was no explanation for the second slap. The second slap had been delivered by Yi Xian at the same time as the burly man had attacked. He had struck only after the enemy had struck, and in such a clean and efficient manner. No matter how stupid the burly man was, he knew that the person in front of him was not someone he could deal with. The burly man jumped out of the crater, but he did not dare to attack Yi Xian. Instead, he looked at Yi Xian in shock and asked loudly, "Who exactly are you?" The burly man had been running amok in this area for hundreds of thousands of years, but he had never seen Yi Xian before. Therefore, it could only mean that Yi Xian was from somewhere else. However, this was not an ordinary area. It was a special area that had been sealed off. Monster beasts ran amok all around. It could be said that the strong could not be bothered to come here, and the average person could not enter at all. Therefore, when he saw Yi Xian, the burly man was very puzzled. Where exactly did Yi Xian come from? What was Yi Xian's identity? Chapter 25-21. Heading to Kuei-jie, you have no right to ask where I come from, Yi Xian said calmly. Yi Xian calmly said. It could be said that Yi Xian didn't intend to pay attention to the burly man. In Yi Xian's mind, this burly man was not worth his attention. If this burly man was tactful and left immediately, Yi Xian might not have pursued him and would have just let him go. However, this burly man still wanted to provoke Yi Xian. Good boy, you think you're strong? Just you wait. If you have the guts, just wait here. If I don't make you and this rock jia person pay the price, I will. Whoosh. Before the burly man could finish, he realized that Yi Xian had already appeared in front of him. What are you going to do? At this moment, Yi Xian's expression was filled with anger. It could be said that this burly man should never have used the rock jia person to threaten Yi Xian. In fact, Yi Xian and the rock jia person did not have much of a relationship. It could be said that if Yi Xian left this place, he would not be able to return. However, given Yi Xian's temper, he would not implicate others. If this burly man wanted to vent his anger on the rock jia person after Yi Xian left, then Yi Xian's method was very simple. He would eliminate this burly man first. The burly man's expression changed. He knew that he had misspoken and quickly shut his mouth, not daring to say another word. Unfortunately, it was too late to say anything now. Forget it. To avoid trouble, I'll kill you first. Yi Xian said calmly. He clearly wanted to take someone's life, but he made it sound so simple. Because these people deserved to die. However, Yi Xian's words made the burly man and the people around him change their expressions. How dare you? The burly man retreated quickly. At the same time, a ray of light appeared around his body. He was ready to use the power of his domain. However, he would never be able to use his domain again. That was because a beam of light had shattered his godhood. It was the God Slayer. While Yi Xian was speaking, the God-slaying sword was already prepared. And the moment the burly man was about to release his domain, the God-slaying sword suddenly moved, directly shattering his godhead. This place was close to release of the great rock. Yi Xian did not want to disturb the peace of release of the great rock because of his battle. Therefore, Yi Xian chose to end the battle quickly. Whoosh! Whoosh! Several flashes of light appeared in succession. The people who had come with the big man had already fled in panic. However, Yi Xian did not pursue them. Because, in order to solve this problem, Yi Xian needed to personally solve it. Therefore, the escape of these people did not affect Yi Xian at all. At this moment, the few old men from release of the great rock immediately came to Yi Xian's side. Young man, hurry up and leave this place. Our release of the great rock is still useful to the release of the great rock. Naturally, they will not find trouble with us. However, if you continue to stay here, I'm afraid your life will be in danger. Hurry up and leave. Do not provoke those people from the release of the Great Rock. There are many experts among the release of the Great Rock. They are not people you can afford to provoke. Although his words were harsh, Yi Xian knew that this old man had good intentions. Yi Xian did not respond to the old man's words. Instead, he turned his attention to the giant beast that the people had left behind. This giant beast was extremely large and looked ferocious. However, from the battle just now, it could be seen that this giant beast was very docile. This was because Yi Xian had sent the burly man flying with a slap and he had landed not far from the giant beast. This giant beast had actually retreated in fear. Old man, what kind of beast is this? Yi Xian asked the old man. The old man looked at Yi Xian, then at the giant beast and sighed helplessly. He could tell from Yi Xian's Chinese that Yi Xian would not listen to his advice. Therefore, he did not intend to continue persuading him. After all, he could not understand Yi Xian's strength. Perhaps Yi Xian really did not fear the release of the Great Rock. Are you talking about this earth-drilling dragon? It is the most common mount around here. Don't be fooled by its huge size, it is very docile. Yi Xian nodded and walked directly to the earth-drilling dragon's side. The earth-drilling dragon was not afraid when it saw Yi Xian approach. It just stared at Yi Xian with its house-sized eyes. Yi Xian understood that this earth-drilling dragon was probably some kind of mythical beast that had returned to its ancestral roots. That was why it had evolved to such a huge size. However, even though it had lost its intelligence, it still retained its docile nature and was not as violent as other mythical beasts. Old man, do you know where the release of the Great Rock is? Yi Xian did not intend to stay any longer at the release of the Great Rock. Some things were better dealt with in a timely manner. Yi Xian did not want to waste too much time here. When he heard Yi Xian's question, the old man hesitated for a moment, but finally pointed the way for Yi Xian. All right, old man, I won't be participating in your wilderness festival. I have other matters to attend to, so I won't disturb you all. As Yi Xian spoke, he leaped onto the back of the earth-drilling dragon. After all, Yi Xian was very interested in such a huge mount. On the back of the earth-drilling dragon was a palace that was not very big. However, the palace was well stocked. Yi Xian sat firmly on the back of the earth concealment dragon, while the earth concealment beast was rapidly advancing. Every direction was the release of the Great Rock. Through the way the earth-drilling dragon advanced, Yi Xian finally understood the origin of its name. This guy was simply cutting through everything. His innate ability seemed to allow him to sense the empty spaces around him. Furthermore, he could use the earth-drilling ability indefinitely. The earth-drilling ability was not considered an ability. It was just the most basic way to advance. However, the ability to drill through the earth and sense its surroundings made the earth-drilling dragon a qualified mount. Furthermore, the earth-drilling dragon was extremely fast. It could be said that it was as fast as teleportation. It didn't take long for Yi Xian to be brought to Kuei Jie's territory by the earth-burrowing dragon. When Yi Xian saw the release of the Great Rock, he finally understood why it was so domineering. The release of the Great Rock was actually like a small city with a population of no less than 100,000. A release of 100,000 people was bullying a release of a few hundred people. Yi Xian understood the reason in an instant. What they were eyeing was probably the rock release's Dharma idol sculptures. Yi Xian had enough reason to believe that the Dharma idol sculptures were definitely rare items, even in the progenitor realm. Therefore, the release of the Great Rock release would naturally continue to bully it and monopolize all the Dharma idol sculptures produced by the rock release. That was the only way they could reap greater benefits. It was no wonder that when Yi Xian left, the old man had said that the release of the Great Rock wouldn't do anything to them. Chapter 25-22. Ancestral Spirit Fruit. At this time, the great leader was extremely angry. The Great Pengjia had always been the great leader's main source of income. After all, the Dharma statue was very popular and sold at a high price. Although the Dharma statue could only be used in the progenitor realm, The great leader was not a person with a good temper. Now that he heard from his subordinates that the leader he sent out was killed by an outsider, and that he did not receive the Dharma statue, how could he not be angry? One had to know that the person who asked for the Dharma statue was from Shao Su. This was a super force that the great leader could not afford to offend. Although the great leader hid in the dense forest surrounded by divine beasts, it was easy for Shao Su to find trouble with him. In fact, the leader of the Kuei Jie did not dare to bully the great rock Jie too much. After all, the great rock Jie was his cash cow. Without the great rock Jie's Dharma idol statue, he would not be able to support so many people. This time, if it were not for Shao Su's people, he would not have asked people to collect the protection fee in advance. You said that the young man defeated all of you alone and is very strong? Yes, great leader. That outsider is very strong. None of us could withstand one blow from him. Do you know where he came from? The great leader frowned slightly. Although he was angry, he was not blind. He dared to help the great Ping Jia, and he was very strong. Then, where did this guy come from? Great leader, I can't tell, but according to my speculation, that guy may be from the outside. From the outside? The great leader was puzzled again. If he was from the outside, he should go directly to the 4 caves. Why would he come here? Traversing the forest outside the Kuei-jie was not a simple matter. Therefore, the great leader had to think carefully about it. However, just as the great leader was thinking, he did not know that Yi Xian had arrived at the great leader. At this moment, Yi Xian was strolling in the great leader. Speaking of which, it was strange. These people clearly had the ability to build palaces, pavilions, and the like. However, they only used thatched huts, straw huts, and animal skin tents as their own houses. The burrowing dragon that Yi Xian had obtained was the best proof. There was a small palace on the back of the burrowing dragon. Although it was not luxurious, it was not shabby either. However, the Depeng Jia and the Kuei Jia just now had to be so shabby. Of course, perhaps to them, there was a special reason for this. It was just that Yi Xian did not understand. At this moment, Yi Xian was walking on a street. On both sides of the street, some people were selling some strange things. With the knowledge of the great Peng Jia, Yi Xian would not ignore these strange objects. Who could guarantee that they were not some kind of special magic treasure? This guest, I, Xing Jia, have newly made water grass shoes. Do you want a pair? Water grass shoes? Yi Xian slightly wrinkled his brow. If it was just the name, Yi Xian could not help but dislike it. However, when Yi Xian picked up the water grass shoes and examined them, he had a new understanding. As it turned out, although the water grass shoes had a tacky name, their function was not bad. Moreover, the appearance was not the water grass shoes that one imagined. Although these water grass shoes were woven from some kind of divine grass, their design was unique. The most important thing was their function. Wearing the water grass shoes, one's divine power recovery speed could be doubled. Furthermore, there was a certain support for water element law. It could be said that if these water grass shoes were placed outside of the ancestor realm, it would be considered a good thing. However, in this ancestor realm, it seemed to be a very ordinary item. Yi Xian put down the water grass shoes and walked to the side. This was a fruit stall. However, the fruits on sale were absolutely not any fruits that Yi Xian had seen before. Yi Xian casually picked up a fruit and found that there was a mysterious power swimming on it. This was not divine power, nor was it law power. It was a power that Yi Xian had never come into contact with before. In fact, Yi Xian could not even detect what use it had. At this moment, the fruit stall looked at Yi Xian with a smile and asked, "Guest, do you want a few ancestral spirit fruits? You can choose as you wish. These are all recently picked ancestral spirit fruits. The one in your hand is a 3,000-year-old ancestral spirit fruit and contains a lot of ancestral power." 3,000 years? Ancestral power? What kind of power was this? Seeing Yi Xian's puzzled look, the person seemed to have reacted and asked Yi Xian directly, "Guest, are you from the outside?" Yi Xian nodded and said without hiding anything, "Yes, I just came in from the outside." "Oh, I see. No wonder. Guessed, you are heading to the 4 caves, right? Then you should buy more ancestral spirit fruits. Here, you can try it. This is a 500-year-old ancestral power fruit. You will know why I said so after eating it." While speaking, the person handed a fruit to Yi Xian. Puzzled, Yi Xian ate the fruit directly. However, the moment he ate it, Yi Xian finally knew what the ancestral spirit fruit was for. It turned out that this fruit could replenish divine power. No, not only could it replenish physiology, but it could also replenish the power of law. How could there be such a magical fruit? One must know that Yi Xian had never seen such a fruit before. Pills that could replenish the power of law were very rare, let alone fruits that could replenish the power of law. If the fruit was used in combination with other resources, the effect of the pills refined would be imaginable. Guest, since you are from the outside, it is normal that you don't know about the ancestral spirit fruit. The ancestral spirit fruit is a fruit unique to the ancestor realm. Moreover, the 4 caves of the 10 voids have long stipulated that no ancestral spirit fruit can be brought outside. Besides, even if it is brought out, the fruit will lose its effect and can only be used in the ancestor realm. Esteemed guest, let me tell you this. This fruit is the most commonly used fruit in the ancestor realm. It can be said that everyone will prepare some. Once there is a battle or assessment, the effect of this fruit can be imagined. The person continued to promote his fruit, but in fact, there was no need for him to continue promoting. Yi Xian had already decided to buy in bulk. Because just now, when Yi Xian was eating the fruit, he also asked the system a question. That was, could Yi Xian bring the fruit out of the ancestor realm? The system's answer was no, but it could be planted in the devouring space. Yi Xian naturally wouldn't let go of such a magical fruit. Let me ask you, is there only one kind of ancestral spirit fruit? Chapter 25-23. Young leader, of course not. No one knows how many types of ancestral spirit fruits there are, but generally speaking, the highest quality ones are the dragon ancestral fruit, phoenix ancestral fruit and so on. However, our grass cave can't grow ancestral spirit fruits of such quality. We usually produce the most common monkey ancestral fruit. Yi Xian didn't care what kind of ancestral spirit fruit it was. In Yi Xian's heart, as long as it could provide him with divine power and law power, it was a good fruit. Alright, I'll buy it. Tell me, how much are you selling it for? Huh, you're quite straightforward. Then I won't cheat you of anything. 3,000-year-old fruit for 10,000 spirit stones, 5,000-year-old fruit for 100,000 spirit stones, and 10,000-year-old fruit for 1,000,000 spirit stones. How about that? Yi Xian was slightly taken aback. The price. It wasn't that they were expensive, but that they were cheap, too cheap. If they were sold outside, such a fruit or elixir that could instantly restore one's divine power and law power, for example, that 3,000-year-old fruit, would cost at least 10,000,000 spirit stones. After all, with such an elixir, one's chances of winning in a battle of equal strength would be much higher. Alright, count how many fruits you have. I'll sell all of them. Yi Xian waved his hand and said directly. Sir, you're saying you want all of them? That person looked at Yi Xian in disbelief. After all, although the ancestral spirit fruit was good, it had a side effect. One couldn't eat a second one in a short period of time. Of course, it didn't mean that one couldn't eat it, but that the more one ate it, the less effective it would be. Besides, these fruits were meant to be used in emergencies, so it was enough to carry a few of them with him. However, Yi Xian wanted to buy all the fruits in his hand. One had to know that he had brought more than 100 fruits this time. However, since Yi Xian had said so, the person naturally wouldn't ask any more questions. How could he not do business when there was no other way? Alright, sir, I'll do the calculation for you. There are a total of 107 fruits with a total value of 11,070,000 spirit stones. I'll take 10,000,000 spirit stones. What do you think? Yi Xian did not answer. Instead, he handed over an interspatial ring. The person checked with his divine sense and saw that there were exactly 11 million spiritual stones inside. Yi Xian took the interspatial ring and asked, "Can the ancestral spirit fruit be planted? Do you want to plant the ancestral spirit fruit?" It wasn't impossible, but the growth of the ancestral spirit fruit was very slow. It would take about 70 to 80,000 years for an ancestral spirit fruit tree to bear its first fruit. Of course, if you're interested, you can use ancestral spirit fruits that are more than 5,000 years old as seeds. Would it need 70,000 to 80,000 years to grow? Yi Xian was slightly taken aback. It seemed that the ancestral spirit fruit wasn't easy to grow. However, Yi Xian had the devouring space, so he did not have to worry too much about time. Yi Xian nodded and walked forward. At the same time, some of the ancestral spirit fruits that he had chosen were transplanted into the devouring space. The value of the ancestral spirit fruit was very high and its effects were good, so Yi Xian did not feel that it was inappropriate to spend 10 million spiritual stones on these fruits. However, Yi Xian did not know that someone had seen the scene of him buying the fruits. Like the Great Ping Jia, the grass Jia was just an ordinary small Jia. They only had a few ancestral spirit fruit trees, but they were often exploited by the Kuei Jia. The young master of the Kuei Jia was a famous young ruffian. It could be said that everyone in the small Jia was bullied by him. However, the young master was not only the only son of the great leader of the Kuei Jia, but also the future great leader of the Kuei Jia. Therefore, no one dared to be angry with him. Today, he was casually walking on the street, but he coincidentally saw the scene of Yi Xian buying the fruit. The young master smiled slightly and said to his attendant, "Interesting. I didn't expect a rich young master to come to our Kuei Jia. Let's go and meet this guy." To be able to buy all the ancestral spirit fruits, only he, the young master, could do so. Therefore, he was naturally curious about Yi Xian. It was not that the people here were poor. In fact, even the person who made the deal with Yi Xian had the strength of a mid-level ultimate god. However, the people here were so poor because of the Kuei Jia's exploitation. Of course, it was not that they were weak, but they did not have the strength to fight against the Kuei Jia. The ancestor realm was different from the outside world. In the outside world, a divine realm expert could become a divine lord. However, there were people who had surpassed the divine master level in the rent territory. Moreover, there was more than one of them. The young leader brought his followers and followed closely behind Yi Xian's movements. They did not hide in the slightest. How could Yi Xian not notice? So at this moment, Yi Xian directly stopped in his tracks, turned his head, and lightly asked as he looked at the young leader, "Why are you following me?" "Huh, do I need to follow you? Don't you know the entire Kuei Jia is mine?" "What a joke. I can do whatever I want in my own territory. What's wrong? Are you unhappy?" Because Yi Xian was able to take out so many spirit stones in one breath, coupled with Yi Xian's attire, none of them were part of the attire here. Therefore, the young leader tactfully didn't directly attack Yi Xian. Therefore, he was still observing Yi Xian. "Hey, kid, where did you come from? I haven't seen you before." The young master's tone was frivolous and did not take Yi Xian seriously at all. "Do I need to tell you where I came from?" Yi Xian lightly replied. He didn't put this young leader in his eyes at all. "How dare you speak to our young master like that?" Unexpectedly, as soon as Yi Xian finished speaking, one of the young master's subordinates shouted arrogantly. Yi Xian glanced at the young master and asked casually, "Is this your dog?" The young master was slightly taken aback, but the expression of the person who had spoken changed again and again. Suddenly, the young master laughed heartily. "Interesting. Your words are really interesting." When he heard the young master's laughter, the subordinate was furious, but he did not dare act up. "That's right, it's my dog. What do you think? Is your dog as obedient as this?" The young master patted the subordinate's head as he spoke. Yi Xian glanced at the young master again but did not say anything. Instead, he walked forward. The young master was clearly angry when he saw Yi Xian ignore him, but he did not act up. Instead, he took 2 steps forward and blocked Yi Xian's path. Chapter 25-24. Chapter 25-24. Chapter 25-24. Kill your father. Yi Xian's eyes were filled with mockery. This guy kept calling him this young master, so Yi Xian had long known his identity. So at this moment, what was he thinking? He wanted to play a prank on her. You want to ask me what I'm going to do? That's right. I'm asking you what you're going to do. The young chieftain replied affirmatively. Meanwhile, Yi Xian had a strange smile on his face. Then he said, I'm going to kill someone. Why? Do you want to come with me? When he heard Yi Xian say that he was going to kill someone, the young chieftain was stunned for a moment before replying immediately. This is such an interesting matter. Of course, this young master will go. Let's go, lead the way. Yi Xian did not bother to explain and just walked straight ahead. The young master actually came over and asked, Tell me, who are you going to kill? Tell me, maybe I'll know. Yi Xian replied in his heart, Of course you know, because the person I am going to kill is the leader of Kuei Jia, who is also your father. But of course, Yi Xian wouldn't say that directly, because Yi Xian was still waiting to see the expression on that guy's face. If you want to see me kill someone, just follow me. Why do you care so much? Alright, I won't ask. Today is really interesting. This young master wants to see what kind of person you are going to kill. With Yi Xian at the front and the young chieftain and his entourage at the back, they advanced quickly. However, after walking for a while, the young leader was puzzled. Because he realized that Yi Xian was heading in the direction of his house. Of course, he did not think too much about it. He thought that Yi Xian was just passing by. He even wondered if Yi Xian was going to kill some branch leader or something. Time passed, and soon, Yi Xian arrived at the leader's house. Under the young chieftain's puzzled gaze, Yi Xian kicked open the door to the chieftain's house. At the beginning, when the few guards at the entrance saw their young leader following behind this person, they naturally wouldn't stop him. However, when they saw Yi Xian kick open the door, their expressions changed drastically. They immediately looked at Yi Xian warily. However, their young leader was still here, so the guards didn't do anything. What are you doing? Why did you kick my door? The young chieftain quickly walked up to Yi Xian and questioned Yi Xian. However, Yi Xian smiled and asked, Is this your home? If this isn't my home, then is it your home? Oh, is that so? The person I killed is right here. Do you still want to come with me to take a look? Yi Xian continued to ask. The young chieftain frowned and replied, Fine, I'd like to see who you're going to kill in my house. At this moment, the big chieftain sensed what was happening at the door, so he quickly walked out. He saw his son standing outside the door with a young man, and the door to their house had been kicked open. What are you doing? Nonsense. Why did you break the door? At this moment, the big chieftain didn't know that Yi Xian was here to kill him, so he asked Yi Xian and the young chieftain this question. Before the young leader could speak, he heard Yi Xian say, The person I killed is here. It's all thanks to you for leading the way. Before the young chieftain could react to Yi Xian's words, the big chieftain shouted angrily, You want to kill me? Just you? And you, what's going on? The last sentence was naturally directed at the young chieftain. However, the young chieftain still didn't understand the situation and didn't know how to reply. You don't have to ask him. Your son said he wanted to see me kill, so he followed me here. Alright, I don't have time to waste with you here. Die. Yi Xian had already checked this person's cultivation level through the system. It was only a second-grade superior ultimate god. In other words, Yi Xian was confident that he could kill this person, so he didn't put this person in his eyes at all. Yi Xian said as he released the Godslayer, but he still turned to the young chieftain and said, Didn't you say you wanted to see me kill someone? Well, watch me now. The young chieftain was dumbfounded. He said he wanted to see Yi Xian kill, but he didn't want to see Yi Xian kill his father. If the young chieftain knew that Yi Xian was here to cause trouble for his father, he wouldn't have blindly participated. Now, he was afraid that no matter how he explained, his father would not listen to him. At that moment, Yi Xian had already started fighting with the Kuei Jie's leader. Yi Xian suddenly slashed down with his sword. The powerful force shook the Kuei Jie's big house in an instant. Surprisingly, Yi Xian's slash didn't destroy the Kuei Jie's big house. Yi Xian understood from the rock Jie's experience that the Kuei Jie's big house was probably built with special materials like the rock Jie's big house. Therefore, Yi Xian's hand paused slightly at that moment. Yi Xian had clearly attacked the Kuei Jie's leader, but his attack was attracted by the big house. This was something that Yi Xian had never encountered before. At that moment, the Kuei Jie's leader was furious. "You dare to attack me? Very well, I'll let you know my power today. Die, boy." The Kuei Jie's leader suddenly threw a punch. However, the big house suddenly spewed out a huge ray of light. Boom! A powerful force erupted. A divine shield lit up beside Yi Xian, but it was broken in an instant. Then, Yi Xian blocked with the Godslayer in front of him. The powerful force hit the Godslayer directly. Boom! Yi Xian was sent flying. Then, he saw an unbelievable scene. The big house was changing rapidly. It didn't take long before it turned into a strange weapon. The big house was a weapon? Yi Xian was shocked beyond words. The progenitor realm was filled with countless unknowns and inconceivable things. When Yi Xian had observed the big house, he didn't think that it was a weapon. No matter how he looked at it, he felt that it was just a house made with special materials. Now that he attacked, he realized that the big house was the Kuei Jie's weapon. Why would a progenitor use a weapon as his house? Whoosh! The Kuei Jie's leader moved and appeared beside Yi Xian. His body exuded waves of powerful energy. In addition to the power of the laws, there was also the unique ancestral power of the progenitor realm. Die for me. The big house weapon in the Kuei Jie's hand emitted a powerful light again. In an instant, it turned into a light screen that covered the sky and directly suppressed Yi Xian. Yi Xian knew that if this light screen surrounded him, it would not be pleasant. Infinite teleportation. Yi Xian immediately tried to dodge, but the light screen seemed to have its own consciousness. It actually followed behind Yi Xian the entire time. No matter where Yi Xian fled to, he followed closely behind him. Chapter 25-25. Big House Dharma Treasure, damn it, I can't dodge it. Yi Xian thought to himself. He had no choice but to attack the light screen. Absolute Zero. Yi Xian tried to freeze the light screen. However, the power of Absolute Zero was not enough to freeze the entire light screen. Even if Yi Xian managed to freeze a portion of the light screen, the rest of the light screen continued to surround Yi Xian. In the blink of an eye, Yi Xian was completely surrounded. Then, the light screen joined together and began to squeeze towards Yi Xian like a round ball. Eternal Field. Yi Xian was helpless. He could only use the eternal domain. A vast amount of energy was emitted from Yi Xian's body, and the violent energy directly blocked the light screen. However, that was all there was to it. The power of Yi Xian's eternal field continued to wear down the light screen, but neither side could do anything to the other. At this moment, the Cassia Great Leader approached Yi Xian smugly. "Kid, how is it? Isn't my absolute predicament very powerful?" The Cassia Great Leader was very pleased with himself. His absolute predicament was a trapping array created by combining the big house. It could be said that the Cassia Great Leader had never failed when he activated the absolute predicament. It had been so in the past, and it was still so now. Although Yi Xian had not been killed yet and was only trapped in the absolute predicament, he believed that as time passed, Yi Xian would die sooner or later. Yi Xian naturally heard the Cassia Great Leader's words. Although Yi Xian admired the Cassia Great Leader's attack, he had never seen such a strange attack before. What kind of attack was this? What kind of attack was this? What kind of attack was this? It was not the power of a domain, nor was it the power of laws or divine power. It was a completely new kind of power that Yi Xian had never seen before. It was a mysterious attack formed by combining the power of laws, divine power, and ancestral power. Ancestral power. Even now, Yi Xian still hadn't figured out what this ancestral power was and what kind of characteristics it had. However, even so, it did not mean that they could do anything to Yi Xian. In fact, although Yi Xian was trapped in an absolute predicament, neither of them could do anything to the other. This was because the power of the eternal domain could not be freely controlled like the absolute predicament. The power of the eternal domain could only create an environment that belonged to Yi Xian's power with the ant Yi Xian as the center. Therefore, the eternal domain was still. At this moment, although Yi Xian's eternal domain was surrounded by the power of the absolute restriction, it didn't suffer much damage. At the edge of the domain, the two forces were constantly wearing each other down. Furthermore, it was clear that the power of the eternal domain had the upper hand. It was as if the eternal domain was fighting a defensive battle, while the power of the predicament was attacking. The power of the predicament kept trying to compress the power of the domain of eternity. It kept compressing toward Yi Xian. However, every time it advanced a certain distance, it would inevitably consume a lot of energy. The smug look on the great leader's face gradually faded. After a while, his expression turned serious. The great leader could clearly sense the changes in the power of the predicament. With this power of the predicament, it could be said that he had dominated this area for tens of thousands of years. However, today, he had finally met his match. His power of the predicament was being rapidly consumed. This predicament power was specially refined by the Grand Chieftain Kuei Xie. Its purpose was to slowly squeeze the surrounding enemies until they died. In the past, every enemy he had trapped would use all kinds of methods to try to resist the attack of the predicament, but no one had ever succeeded. After all, the great leader's power of the predicament was originally aimed at all kinds of domain powers. However, today, Yi Xian had done it. And he could do even better. The power of the eternal domain was constantly being worn down. At this moment, Yi Xian had already turned into a powerful ball of light, like a sun. The entire great leader was illuminated by him. The two powers were silently wearing each other down. There was no sound at all. There was only that flash of light. That was the result of the collision of the two powers. Break. Suddenly, Yi Xian's powerful power erupted. The eternal domain was Yi Xian's greatest trump card. If it was so easily subdued, then it was not qualified to be Yi Xian's trump card. In an instant, Yi Xian's eternal domain surged, and the power of the predicament was directly broken and turned into nothingness. No, impossible. How could my power of the predicament be broken? The great leader's eyes were filled with shock. His greatest trump card had been broken by Yi Xian. This was hard for him to accept. One had to know that the great leader had spent 30,000 years just searching for the materials to refine this ancestral powerhouse. After that, he had spent another 30,000 years to refine it. A full 60,000 years. Great leader Kuei Jia had spent 60,000 years crafting such a large weapon. However, his 60,000 years of painstaking effort had been so easily destroyed by Yi Xian. No, I don't believe it. Die, I will definitely kill you. The great leader's expression changed drastically. After all, it was his 60,000 years of painstaking effort that had been destroyed. It was naturally difficult for him to accept this. He threw the weapon house again, attempting to launch a new round of attacks. However, in a battle at their level, the slightest hesitation could lead to countless changes. Moreover, he had delayed for so long. Thus, at this moment, Yi Xian's attack had already arrived. 1 becomes 10,000. Yi Xian casually waved his hand. The God Slayer immediately turned into thousands of sword lights and attacked the great leader in front of him. Perhaps these sword lights were not enough to kill the great leader, but these sword lights were only the beginning of the attack. At this moment, a new wave of attacks erupted along with the sword lights. This time, Yi Xian did not hold back at all. He did not attempt anything. He attacked with all his might. Wei Zhentian, kill him. Divine wood sword servants, divine flower sword servants, come out. Eternal night field. Absolute zero. Dharma blessing. One powerful attack after another exploded out in an instant. If one wanted to test the strength of the Grand Leader, then the contact between the eternal domain and the power of the predicament was already considered a test. Therefore, at this moment, Yi Xian no longer needed to test anything. What Yi Xian wanted was to attack. Attack with all his might. Yi Xian held the Law Divine bow in his hand. Powerful Law Divine arrows didn't pause in the slightest as they directly attacked the Grand Leader. Boom! 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 This time, the continuous attacks completely surrounded the Great Leader. Yi Xian's divine will had already locked onto him, so there was no chance for him to escape. Chapter 25-26. Xiao Su, however, Yi Xian had too many tricks up his sleeve, so much so that the Great Leader couldn't react in time. Smoke filled the air. The sky was completely covered by the battle between the two men. Everyone in the Kuei Jia looked up at the sky. As for the young leader of the Kuei Jia, he was completely stunned. This valiant guy actually suppressed his father. This was something that the young leader couldn't imagine. In the young leader's heart, his father was the most powerful person, and no one could defeat him. But today, this guy, who was probably younger than him, actually suppressed his father. Moreover, as time passed, his father would be in danger. No, elders, what are you doing? Hurry up and kill that guy. The young leader scolded angrily, but no one paid attention to him. Instead, a follower beside him said, "Young leader, the Great Leader is using the Great House to attack. This symbolizes a battle for the leadership. We can't interfere. What kind of **T rule is this? Who set this rule? Why can't we attack? Can't you see that my father is being attacked by that damn guy?" Young leader, the Great Leader was the one who set this rule. He once said that anyone who has the strength can challenge him. Whoever can win the Great House will be the new Great Leader of the Kuei Jia, said the follower. Of course, the reason why these people didn't attack was not because of this. It was more because the Great Leader had done things that made him lose the hearts of the people. The Great Leader had bullied too many people and too many Jia. It could be said that there was no Jia around the Kuei Jia that had not been bullied by him. In fact, the Kuei Jia in the past was not like this. Many years ago, although the Kuei Jia was the biggest Jia in this area, because of the special environment here, the Kuei Jia was only the leader of the Jia. Everyone resisted the attacks of the divine beasts together and developed together. At that time, there was no fighting and no war. However, ever since the Great Leader took office, there had been constant battles. On the surface, it seemed that the Kuei Jia had conquered this area. However, both the Kuei Jia and the other Kuei Jia's people knew that it wasn't because they couldn't defeat the Great Leader, but because there were too many atavism mythical beasts around. If they were to engage in infighting, there would only be one result: the atavism mythical beasts would break through. Therefore, instead of saying that the Great Leader had conquered the Jias, it was better to say that the Jia took the initiative to surrender for the sake of common survival. Take Yi Xian's Hans's experience as an example. Yi Xian's hands. Great Leader's Hans's Great House was Yus's Great Leader Jia's Great Divine Xia's Jia. And the Great's Great Jia's hands. And Great Divine and Great Divine Xia and hands and Xian head's Hans's hands Xia's Yi. It could be said that each solution had its own experts, and some solutions even had more experts than the Kuei Jia. It wasn't that they couldn't beat Kuei Jia, but because they didn't want to fight at all. Previously, no one had jumped out to oppose the Kuei Xia, so the situation was rather stable. However, now that someone had stood forth, the people who were urinating would likely not be so well behaved. In reality, those elders could see this clearly. They knew that if they were to make a move now, the experts who were relieving themselves would immediately join the battle. This was not the result they wanted. Similarly, they did not dare to do so. Of course, the main reason was that they didn't want to do it. It could be said that this Great Leader was not popular at all. On the surface, it looked like the Kuei Xia had unified all the Kuei Xia, but the real benefits were all obtained by the great leader's family. Furthermore, this great leader was constantly selling out the benefits of this place. Originally, this was a place surrounded by atavistic demon beasts. Originally, they could have lived a life like a paradise. However, this big boss kept contacting outside forces in an attempt to escape. For example, weren't Xiao Su's men also provoked by this great leader? There were all sorts of reasons. It could be said that the great leader had single-handedly created all of this. Even his elders were unwilling to help him. Even if no one said it, everyone had the same thought: it was good that the great leader was dead. In the past, the Kuei Xia had been selected by the most talented geniuses in the clan. The position was rotated every 1,000 years. However, the current great leader had always held the position of great leader. He had even appointed his son as the next great leader. Everything that had happened was the great leader's own doing. At this moment, the battle was approaching the tail beasts. The great leader was gradually losing the ability to resist Yi Xian's attacks. Under Yi Xian's relentless attacks, the great leader could no longer fight back. After another moment, Yi Xian let out a furious roar. A powerful force instantly erupted from Yi Xian's body. Boom! This time, the great leader was directly struck down by Yi Xian. The clansmen beside him didn't even look at him. They immediately dodged. Yi Xian landed on the ground and calmly looked at the great leader. He was about to attack and kill him. However, a powerhouse suddenly appeared. Ding! System notification: target is a superior grade 6 Great God Emperor. A superior grade Great God Emperor. Yi Xian was slightly shocked. It could be said that if this person attacked Yi Xian definitely wouldn't be able to fight back. Yi Xian looked at the person warily. However, the person said to Yi Xian, "Young man, you've already defeated the great leader. Can you spare his life?" "Greetings, Lord Shoshu." As soon as this person appeared, the surrounding clansmen all prostrated themselves on the ground. Before Yi Xian could answer, Lord Shoshu continued, "Young man, I know you. After you entered the ancestor realm, you mistakenly came to our place. Then, you encountered the Great Rock Jia's people bullying the Great Rock Jia. That's why you stood up for the Great Rock Jia, right? But now, you've achieved your goal. Although the great leader has done many wrong things, he is still a clansman of our clan. Can you give this old man face and spare his life?" Yi Xian was shocked in his heart. Who exactly was this person? Why did he know everything he did? However, it could be seen that this super powerhouse didn't have any enmity towards Yi Xian. Otherwise, why would he talk to Yi Xian in a negotiating tone? He would have directly suppressed Yi Xian. Alright, I can spare him. However, he can no longer be the leader of the Great Rock Jia. Moreover, the Great Rock Jia must compensate the Great Rock Jia's people. Yi Xian said in a resolute manner. Alright, this old man can promise you that their clan will never be the leader of the Great Rock Jia. Moreover, not only the Great Rock Jia, but all Rock Jia's people will be compensated. What do you think? Chapter 25-27. Set off. Yi Xian nodded. If this was the arrangement, then Yi Xian would have nothing to say. Alright, I agree. Yi Xian agreed. Only now did the crowd realize that the young man who had fought with the great leader Kuei Jia had done so to vent Depeng's anger. Many people smiled when they saw Yi Xian. Young man, I think you're not bad. Furthermore, you seem to like this place. Why don't you become our young Master Su? Young Master Su? What does that mean? Yi Xian asked doubtfully. Yi Xian had never heard of the name Young Master Su before. The old man smiled faintly and said, "It's not easy being a young Master Su. A young Master Su is mainly responsible for mediating the conflicts between the voids. In other words, if there is a conflict between the voids, you have to deal with it personally. This is not an arduous and thankless job. However, as compensation, if you become a young Master Su, I can give you a big house. What do you think?" Oh, right, I forgot to tell you. I used to be a young Master Su before, but I haven't been back for tens of thousands of years. Actually, you can just become a young Master Su and go out to play. No one will care about you. Yi Xian instinctively sensed that this so-called young Master Su was a conspiracy. However, Yi Xian couldn't figure out what he had that would make a high-class celestial arch worry about him. Moreover, the temptation of a big house was too great. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment. Since he said that he wouldn't be restricted by anything if he became a young Master Su, then there was no harm in becoming one. Alright, I agree. Young people are indeed straightforward. From now on, I'll leave this place to you. This old man can finally enjoy his old age in peace. The old man waved his hand and an interspatial ring fell into Yi Xian's hand. However, the old man had already disappeared. Greetings, Lord Young Master Su. In an instant, everyone around Yi Xian, including the great leader Kuei Jia, bowed at Yi Xian's feet. Yi Xian didn't even understand what was going on. What's going on? Yi Xian was very puzzled, but one of them said to Yi Xian, Master Shao Su, since you have obtained the approval of Master Shao Su, then from now on, you are the Shao Su of our emptiness realm. From now on, our emptiness realm can be considered as true words. Wait a minute, can you explain to me what's going on? Yi Xian was extremely puzzled as he asked that person. Lord Shaoshu might not know this, but because our void realm is located in a remote location, we practically have no contact with the outside world. So, our void realm can be said to be an independent void. Everyone in the ancestor realm knows about the 10 voids and 4 caves, but they don't know that there's another void realm outside the 10 voids. It's just that the rules of our void realm are different from other voids. Our void realm is a tribe leader's void, not a clan's void. Yes, Lord Shaoshu, Master Shao Su is actually not the void of our void realm, but the void of Shao Su. However, he has always been monitoring our void realm. Because of this, we are often considered a part of the Shao Su. But now that we have obtained Master Shao Su's approval, Lord Shaoshu will be the void of our void realm from now on. Void was what these people called the Overlord. It could be said that it was equivalent to a divine master in the outside world. Of course, there weren't that many people in control. For example, the void realm only had a few 100,000 people. Many people in the ancestor realm knew about the void realm. After all, the things that were passed down from the void realm were very precious. However, it wasn't that simple to enter the void realm. The divine beast zone was a natural barrier. Many people had tried to open a path to the void realm, but no one had succeeded. Of course, some people had thought of setting up a teleportation array. However, there was a mysterious power in the void realm. Anyone who set up a teleportation array there would only result in the array being destroyed and people dying. Over time, this emptiness realm was forgotten by people. However, the void realm's territory happened to be within Master Shao Su's jurisdiction. Therefore, Master Shao Su often helped the void realm. Of course, he only helped occasionally and couldn't stay there for long. Perhaps this was why he didn't ask too much about the actions of great leader Kuei Jia. In his heart, Master Shao Su probably hoped that great leader Kuei Jia could really unify the entire void realm and become the void of the void realm. Yi Xian's appearance had been an accident. Yi Xian had entered the void realm by accident. Because Yi Xian wasn't a void realm member and wasn't very strong, the Master Shao Su had named Yi Xian the void realm's young void, which had been unanimously approved by everyone. After all, the void realm's void realm didn't have much authority. However, having a young void meant that the void realm could become a void on its own. Therefore, Yi Xian becoming a young void would naturally be unanimously supported. Perhaps some people would object, such as the great leader. However, the great leader had just been defeated by Yi Xian. Besides, Yi Xian was personally appointed by Master Shao Su, so even if he didn't accept it, there was nothing he could do. After half a day, Yi Xian finally understood the situation. It turned out that he had been used. He had become the signboard of this void realm person, but he had no real power. However, Yi Xian didn't care about this. After all, even if he really became the true void of these hundreds of thousands of people, Yi Xian probably wouldn't care much. It was only hundreds of thousands of people. Yi Xian was an angel in the Kunlun ruins. He was in charge of 2 god realms and trillions of living beings. How could Yi Xian care about a mere hundreds of thousands of people? As expected, almost no one would discuss the following arrangements with Yi Xian. They would only tell Yi Xian after making a decision. After staying in the Void Realm for half a month, Yi Xian was finally ready to set off again. During this half a month, Yi Xian was actually waiting for the Kuei Jia to choose a new leader. The new leader of the Kuei Jia was originally a branch leader of Sister Kuei. However, he was kind and not bad. On this day, Yi Xian finally suggested to everyone that they should delay their departure. No one stopped Yi Xian. After all, most of the time, they only treated this Xiao Su as a sign hanging there. However, since Yi Xian wanted to leave, these people still had to express their sincerity. After all, Yi Xian was the Xiao Su of this void realm. If Yi Xian was bullied outside, wouldn't it be embarrassing for the void realm? Therefore, before Yi Xian